Chapter 1398. Bastard. Bastard. I never thought that the people of the divine dragon race would be so shameless. When he thought about how Xiang Yang had died at the hands of these despicable fellows, he wanted nothing more than to rush up and fight to the death. On the surface, the divine dragon race is righteous, but behind the scenes, they are so despicable and cunning. They are truly disdainful. Shameless. These sanctimonious fellows, after beating one, another comes. Is there an end to this? Is this a continuous battle? If we want to compete in numbers, we are not afraid. An elite shouted. This place was very close to Su Yun's allied army camp, and after releasing the signal, the million-strong army would arrive within 2 hours. At that time, no matter how strong the fighting dragon was, he would definitely be exhausted to death by the countless immortals. Although it was impossible for him to fight against 1,000,000 immortals, but if he wanted to escape, Su Yun would not be able to stop him. You all are distorting the truth and insulting my divine dragon race. Yet you are still speaking so rudely here. Let me ask you, were you the one who killed the icy divine dragon and the stone dragon? He roared at Su Yun, his words extremely arrogant. It's me, what do you plan to do? Su Yun coldly snorted. They are courting death. Don't tell me that I shouldn't fulfill their wish. Then I'll fulfill your wish. The fighting dragon could no longer suppress it. With a roar, he swung his tail toward Su Yun. The huge dragon tail brought with it a brute force that could destroy everything as it smashed over fiercely. He said he would fight without any warning. Thank you. So the ones who really like to sneak attack are you, divine dragon race. Su Yun was furious. Today he was truly angered by the divine dragon race. Xiang Yang's death, the divine dragon race's shameless breach of contract, caused the anger in his heart to rise. It seems like if I don't establish my might today, others will think that I, Su Yun, am easy to bully. Facing the gigantic dragon tail, Su Yun leaped and took the opportunity to jump onto the dragon tail. His accuracy and speed were both speechless. The dragon tail swept past, causing a gale to blow. The surrounding immortals were unable to stand and were directly blown away. So strong, as expected of the fighting dragon, Ji Wuxian thought. This time, he will definitely die. Daoist Scarlet Flame's eyes shone with a malevolent luster. With such a terrifying aura and such a high fighting spirit, Dolong was destined to be an out-and-out battle maniac. Kai Tian and Faceless were also quite worried. Unfortunately, they could not interfere in a battle of this level. Su Yun followed the dragon's tail and slashed fiercely with his sword. The divine power wrapped around the sword's body. It was unstoppable. The scales that looked like they were made of iron were actually cut apart like paper. Roar. The battle dragon let out an angry roar. It was unknown if it was because of anger or pain, but he swung it a few times, and suddenly a transparent black dragon soul came out of his body. The dragon soul sat cross-legged in the air for a while, then rushed straight toward Su Yun. Body and soul separation. Someone exclaimed. This was the great supreme realm. Once one cultivated to a certain level, they would be able to form a divine soul. The divine soul was different from the soul, and was an extremely powerful existence that was similar to one's own strength. Once the divine soul was separated, it could be used in battle, and its strength would be no different from one's own. Once one cultivated to the point where the body and soul could be separated, it was equivalent to creating a clone with the same strength as one's own. The battle dragon's divine soul was completely constructed from divine power. Although it was weak, it was still extremely powerful. Seeing that, Su Yun leaped and dodged the divine soul's bite. Twin dragons playing with pearls. Just then, the battle dragon roared again. The two divine dragons attacked Su Yun at the same time, and at the same time, his original body released a circle of mystical, profound meaning, like a thick layer of dust covering Su Yun's body, and in a short while, he was wrapped into a ball. He had been suppressed. Danger! Kai Tian cried out in alarm. This is a battle on a completely different level. The battle dragon is not something that the ice divine dragon can compare to. His realm might not be much higher than the ice divine dragon, but his fighting experience is extremely rich. His fighting strength is not to be underestimated. Although this person has some methods compared to the battle dragon, he is still far from it. The immortals on the side shook their heads as though they had already determined the outcome. But just at that moment, the profound intent that was wrapped around Su Yun suddenly disappeared without a trace. Its speed was extremely fast. The battle dragon who was rushing over was startled. Before he could react, Su Yun suddenly formed a sword art with one hand and pointed towards the battle dragon's bloody mouth. Sword intent. A terrifying sword intent formed around Su Yun's body. Like a tide, following his light finger, it shot towards the battle dragon's mouth like 10,000 arrows. Trillions of sword chi flew out from the void, all of them condensed from God power, terrifying to the extreme. God power? And it was so dense, so pure? How is this possible? Even a person from the origin void realm would not be able to use God power as he pleased. And it was such a powerful God power. The battle dragon's heart jumped. He immediately closed his mouth, but he was a little slow and still swallowed quite a few chi swords into his stomach. In an instant, waves of pain came from his stomach. It was extremely uncomfortable, and the chi in his body was disrupted by the swords. The situation was not good. The battle dragon anxiously roared. A circle of ripples spread out in all directions. The powerful roar caused the surrounding people to retreat. Su Yun's body swayed slightly. It was not a big deal, but the immortals who had already retreated 1,000 miles away were once again affected. One by one, they were sent flying, and many of them were even injured. The battle dragon took the opportunity to retreat, distancing himself from Su Yun. In fact, it was not difficult for Su Yun to chase after him, but he was not in such a hurry to kill. Recently, he had gained some insights, as if he had touched an even more powerful realm above the origin void, causing him to want to consolidate his own cultivation. But Dolong's heart was pounding. He saw that although this person's face was pale, his eyes were calm. The baleful aura that was originally overflowing was gradually restrained, and even his killing intent was beginning to disappear. What was left was only the sword, chi, and divine power that he intentionally released. Just what was this guy's cultivation level? His speed and reaction had already reached an extremely terrifying level, and his god power was even more unbelievable. Adding that strange sword chi, he was able to release hundreds of millions of them at once. Was this something a human could do? To accurately condense every single chi sword and control every single chi sword, how powerful of an aura would one need to be able to do that? If you keep retreating, wouldn't you be disgracing the so-called divine dragon nobility that you speak of? Su Yun chuckled. He suddenly raised his hand again, and with a shake of his 5 fingers, the space around Do Long started to ripple, and a large amount of sword chi shot out from the ripples, transforming into chi swords that pierced towards Do Long. With Su Yun's current realm, he had already completely comprehended the limitless sword arts, but the techniques recorded in the sword arts were only comprehended by the person who created the sword arts. What he had learned was merely the path laid out by his predecessors, and what he was comprehending now was the path that he had walked on himself. Limitless, limitless. Naturally, there was no limit. The sword could transform into tens of thousands of things, and she could transform into tens of thousands of things. The first few moves of the sword arts were all the basics and not the ultimate technique. If he could take a step further on these basics, then he would be considered to have a glimpse of the door and obtain the way of the sword arts. Su Yun believed that Sword Ancestor had also comprehended the same thing. Do Long continued to twist his body. His body was huge, but he had become Su Yun's target. In the entire sky, chi swords continued to appear, but when they did not hit Do Long, they would immediately disappear, not wasting anything. Seeing this, the immortals in the distance felt that Do Long had already fallen into a cage of swords that was formed from billions of swords. This was already the fight of a trapped beast. In a mind instructs in a second, billions of divine swords appeared. This was no longer something an immortal could do. The sky and earth changed color. The universe trembled, and the universe trembled. This was Su Yun's strength? Terrifying. This was the definition that the people around him gave Su Yun. Su Yun had not used his full strength in the battle with the Ice Divine Dragon and the Stone Dragon. Furthermore, no one knew how much power Su Yun had used in the battle with Do Long. Su Yun was not as weak as they had imagined. Do Long was forced into a corner by the terrifying and dense sword chi. His huge body had already been cut by a large number of sword wounds, and dragon blood splashed everywhere. If he fought with this guy in his original form, he would only be at a disadvantage. Do Long snorted and suddenly removed his original form, transforming into his human form. His entire body released a terrifying aura, shaking away the surrounding chi swords, and then, like a meteor, he rushed towards Su Yun. Roar! A furious roar that could shatter mountains and rivers echoed out, as if it wanted to tear apart a person's internal organs. This attack was exceptionally dazzling, and a pitch-black beam of light appeared in the sky. What an astonishing aura! What a terrifying attack! In the distance, Kai Tian's eyes widened. This Do Long was fighting with Su Yun with brute force. If this attack landed, it would probably be able to kill a void-returning realm expert. But Su Yun did not move at all. He stood there like a statue. Don't look down on me. Seeing that, Do Long flew into a rage. I will let you know, Divine Dragon. You are invincible. Take this. Long Patian shakes. The shocking dragon power covered the sky and engulfed the earth, as if the entire world was under the control of the Do Long aura. The Do Long's aura was rising crazily, earth-shattering, and his body was like a shooting star as he charged forward. Is that so? Is the Divine Dragon really that strong? Then today, I will break the arrogance of your Divine Dragon race and let you understand what it means to say that there is always someone stronger than you. There is always someone stronger. Su Yun did not hold back, releasing all of the god power in his body, directly accumulating it at the tip of his finger. The terrifying god power, along with the sword intent, converged into sword chi. Such a huge amount of power, actually condensed at the tip of his finger, was only the size of a grain of rice. Silence. The surroundings were frighteningly quiet. Slow. Regardless of whether it was a person or an object, at this moment, everything became abnormally slow. Sword realm. The improvement of the realm of the sword. Su Yun stared at the grain of rice in his hand and felt the vast energy and concept inside. The seemingly weak and insignificant existence was actually incomparably powerful. The so-called weak was actually strong, and the so-called big was actually the same as small. When a force was placed together with another force that was 10 times stronger, the force would seem especially insignificant. However, when these two forces were placed together with a force that was hundreds of millions of times stronger, whether it was 1 time or 10 times stronger, it was actually the same. Wasn't it the same for humans? Su Yun slowly closed his eyes. He felt that a strange sky had appeared in his mind, and a vast sword had descended from the sky, piercing into the ground. He could not see the hilt of the sword, nor the tip of the sword. All he could see was a part of the sword. This was the insignificance of a person. However, the strength of a person was destined to pick up this sword sooner or later. This was because a person's potential was limitless. Whether it was 1 time or 100 million times, sooner or later, it would all be possessed by him. When he opened his eyes again, his long hair was fluttering in the wind, and his black robe was rustling. A cyclone was revolving around his body, and finally converged into the grain of rice on his finger. Improved? This guy. He actually broke through it this time? Do Long's heart jumped, although Su Yun's cultivation did not increase. But his state of mind had a clear change. So what if it has improved? No god or ghost can resist this attack of mine. Today is the day of your death. Do Long was furious, as always, and had never changed. Chapter 1399. As a large clan that had been passed down from ancient times, the Divine Dragon race's foundation and heritage were not something that ordinary immortal forces could compare to. It was said that the elders of the Divine Dragon race had existed since the creation of the world, and some people even said that the ancestors of the Divine Dragon race were actually formed from a tendon in the body of the god of creation. They possessed the power of the ancestors and could control the cycle of reincarnation and overturn the universe. When the immortal court ruled over the immortal world, although they had come into contact with the divine dragon race, they did not dare to offend the dignity of the dragon. Dolong's fighting spirit was high. His aura was aggressive. He did not hold back at all. He had long planned to kill Su Yun. Those who insulted the divine dragon race must die. Seeing this attack, Su Yun did not plan to be courteous at all. He snorted. The rice grain on his fingertip continued to accumulate. The dense sword chi continued to revolve. They seemed to be forcefully compressed by some kind of strange power. No matter how hard they tried, they were unable to break out of this imprisonment. Dolong continued to rush forward. His fighting spirit had already risen to an unprecedented, terrifying realm. The fierce fighting spirit was almost about to condense into a substance. It was extremely terrifying. When it landed, the rumbling sound was like a falling planet. Close. The terrifying fighting spirit was beating down on Su Yun. However, he still did not move like the wind. Only his finger lightly flicked at this moment. Whiz! The rice grain flew towards Dolong with an extremely fine trajectory that was difficult to catch. It was too small. It was so small that no one around them noticed it. However, Dolong noticed it. He widened his eyes in surprise at this attack. What exactly was this ordinary-looking thing that was only the size of a grain of rice? Angry? Could this be Su Yun's method? Was this all he had? Dolong did not care at all. His fighting spirit was high, and he did not care about anything. However, the situation was completely different from what he had imagined. The rice grain pierced through his scales like rotten wood and entered his body. At the same time, Dolong's body exploded. Without any warning, trillions of sword chi exploded from his body, shooting out in all directions along with the explosion. The Do Chi instantly collapsed, and his fighting spirit collapsed. The immortals in the distance only saw the Dolong bloom. Fresh blood accompanied the endless sword chi, flying in all directions. Just like that, the aggressive man exploded in front of the black-robed man. Dolong, die. In the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, the surroundings were silent. Everyone stared at the dissipating blood and sword chi, dumbfounded. No one spoke for a long time. Strong, tyrannical and strong. He didn't give anyone a chance to react and directly obliterated them. This strength was peerlessly shocking. Su Yun once again used the battle dragon's blood to prove his strength. No one dared to doubt that Grand Immortal Judge's death was a fluke, and no one dared to doubt his strength. To Su Yun, this battle was not the most difficult battle, but it was the battle that would make him famous. Even Battle Dragon was not Su Yun's opponent. When the few Divine Dragon Race S saw that even the Battle Dragon, who was ranked 7th in the Divine Dragon Race, had died miserably in Su Yun's hands, they were all panicking. How could they dare to stay any longer? He immediately turned around, intending to flee. But just as they were about to run, a large number of figures suddenly appeared in the distance. That was the figure of a celestial. They stopped and looked over, and all of them were stunned. These immortals were all from the Su Yun allied forces, and the ones leading them were Wei Ming, Qin Qianlong, and the others. Countless immortals appeared from all directions. They surrounded the clouds and the sky with an unstoppable momentum. Martial Immortal and the people from the sun-worshipping temple panicked, and the spectating scattered immortals also became nervous. The surrounding killing intent was overflowing, and countless immortals had already surrounded the area, making it so that not even a drop of water could leak through, and all of these people were under Su Yun's orders. Escape? If you don't hand over the soul-gathering pearl, are you still dreaming of escaping? Su Yun stared at the 4 Divine Dragon Race people and said indifferently, I know that if I ask you to obediently hand over the soul-gathering pearl, you will definitely not be willing. Since that's the case, then I can only use some methods. With that, Su Yun waved his hand. Take them down. If they dare resist, destroy their bodies, leaving only their souls. What are you trying to do? Are you not afraid of the Divine Dragon Race? The young man from before asked with a trembling voice. Whether I'm afraid or not is no longer important. The divine dragon race has already viewed me as their enemy, and I do not plan to let the divine dragon race off. Therefore, I hope that in front of me, you will no longer maintain the arrogance of the so-called divine dragon. I really do not understand. What exactly is worth being so proud of? Why do you feel that you are superior to others? He stared at the divine dragons and said coldly. The 4 divine dragon race people's faces were pale, and they were speechless. Qin Xianlong rushed forward, took out a fiery red iron chain, tied them up tightly, and escorted them back to the encampment. Master, what should we do with these people? Xingbai looked at Martial Immortal and the others and asked. Kill them, Su Yun said indifferently. What? Hearing Su Yun's words, the immortals were immediately shocked and shouted out continuously. Kill! Did Su Yun understand what he was saying? You want to kill us? Martial Immortal's eyes widened. He pointed at Su Yun and roared. Do you know who I am? If you dare to touch me, can you bear the consequences? Another threat? Su Yun snorted. With a leap, he instantly landed in front of Martial Immortal and struck his head with his palm. There were no signs. Martial Immortal anxiously raised his hand to block, releasing a circle of chi. But facing Su Yun's tyrannical and peerless god power, his strength seemed to be insignificant, and before he could react, with a bang his body shattered, and he died a miserable death. Those who curry favor with the powerful, seeing that the divine dragon race is strong, you all invert black and white, and curry favor with them. What's the use of keeping such a person? Even if you submit to me today, in the future, when someone stronger than me appears, you will definitely abandon me. What's the use of keeping me? We have no enmity with you. Why must you kill us all? Enmity? Previously, when I was fighting with the divine dragon race, you all insulted me quite a bit. Martial Immortal even wanted to kill me. If I wasn't strong, the people of the divine dragon race would probably let me go, and the martial saint wouldn't either, right? What's more, did you really come here just to watch the duel? Why do I see that all of you have magic treasures, and you look like you're ready to fight? I'm afraid not, right? If I lose the duel and am killed, I'm afraid you will definitely charge into the encampment and plunder it wantonly, right? Since that's the case, then there's no need to say anymore. Since you guys are here, don't leave, Su Yun said coldly. With that said, many people's faces turned pale, and their hearts jumped out of their chests. Su Yun's guess was right. There were hundreds of thousands of people here. The bigger sects had sent out a few thousand people, and the smaller sect had sent out close to 100 people. Although they were here to observe the battle and gain some insights, they had also received orders from the sect that if Su Yun lost, they would take advantage of the situation to plunder the encampment and obtain benefits. But they did not expect that Su Yun would win, and win so easily. You are slandering us. This is just your side of the story, a random guess, and you want to convict us? I refuse to accept this. Taoist Qi Yin said anxiously, but his voice was weak. You want evidence? Su Yun raised his eyebrows. Yes. Sorry, no. Although this is just my deduction, I feel that it can't be wrong. As for the evidence, I don't want to give it. Since you want to kill me, then kill me. Do you think I will have so many misgivings? Su Yun snorted. Without hesitation, he ordered. In that moment, the surrounding millions of immortals locked onto these people. When Su Yun returned to the encampment, his entire body was covered in blood, and he was filled with hostility. This time, he had to establish his might. This world was like this. If you wanted to obtain the respect of others and enjoy the respect and worship of others, you had to display your strength. Su Yun returned to the training grounds and started to meditate. But just then, Wei Ming walked in with a hesitant expression, as though he wanted to say something. If you have anything to say, feel free to say it. Su Yun closed his eyes and spoke while adjusting his breath. Master, is it really appropriate for you to order the slaughter of all those immortals? It is impossible to seal this matter, and I am afraid that the news has already spread to the various great sections. The people from the extreme martial school, the Sun Worship Temple, the Spirit Sword Pavilion, and the Swaying Mountain Peak have already gotten up and come to us to demand an explanation. Can we really handle these people if we want to deal with them? It doesn't matter if we deal with them or not. These immortals had already expressed their hostility towards me in order to curry favor with the divine dragon race, and I used a powerful method to kill them. So they started to worry that I would take revenge on them. But they're not afraid of me, because they plan to take action when the experts of the divine dragon race come to take revenge. You must know, these immortals are not immortals. They're actually a group of bandits. Even if we do not touch them when we're playing with the divine dragon race, they will still hit us when we are down and stab us in the back. Su Yin said, "So that's how it is." Wei Ming bowed, then said, "Then how should we deal with them now? The divine dragon race doesn't seem to be simple either. Is our strength weak?" Su Yin did not say much, and only replied with one sentence. Wei Ming's eyes flickered with a trace of light. He bowed towards Su Yin once again, and then slowly left the cultivation grounds. Su Yin's meaning was obvious. Since the other party had already provoked them to such an extent, then there was no need to have any misgivings and no need to hold onto any wishful thinking. The only thing they could do was to do their best to completely defeat the other party and completely break their confidence. In this battle, Su Yin had indeed not used his full strength, but it still consumed a lot of his divine power. Taking advantage of the fact that the experts of the divine dragon race had yet to arrive, he needed to recover as soon as possible. The immortal qi in his body continued to circulate, but compared to before, it was much more profound. Especially after Su Yin had comprehended the divine power, his understanding of the immortal qi had increased by a huge amount. Since the immortal qi was qi, it could be compressed, condensed, and sublimated. The divine power was the result of condensing and sublimation. In fact, everything in the world could create divine power, and the so-called divine power was just a general term that people used to call the extreme of a type of power. The divine power that Su Yin possessed was the extreme of immortal qi. Wei Ming informed the various people in charge to prepare in full swing, and the encampment also entered a state of alert. No matter how the situation developed, Su Yin had a lot of enemies. Even if the immortal court was overturned, it was still extremely dangerous. Not long after, the people from the divine dragon race arrived. Nearly 1,000 dragons rushed over from the horizon, surrounding the encampment with lightning speed. Angry roars also spread throughout the entire encampment. "Su Yin, get out here!" The azure dragon great elder roared at the top of his lungs. Chapter 1400. The dragon's roar filled the sky, and the dragon's might smashed into the encampment like a huge wave. How could the guards at the encampment withstand this dragon's might? They hurriedly retreated. The stronger ones managed to withstand the might of the dragon and retreat, but the weaker ones were torn apart by the dragon's might and were killed by the dragon's roar. "Activate the barrier! Activate the barrier!" Qin Xianlong, who was nearby, noticed the enemy and immediately rushed over. He used the hidden dragon power, and a golden dragon elephant circled around the station, alleviating the dragon's might and dragon's roar. Following that, several barriers rose up. "You imitated our divine dragon cultivation technique to create an inferior cultivation technique, and you dare to make a fool of yourself in front of us? Showing off in front of an expert. Break for me." The azure dragon roared and released a shockwave from its mouth, shattering Qin Qianlong's dragon elephant. Qin Qianlong was caught off guard and was pushed back by the azure dragon. When he stabilized his body, the azure dragon was already circling outside the barrier, staring at Qin Qianlong with contempt. "Bastard!" Qin Qianlong was furious, but he did not dare to be rash. The experts of the divine dragon race had arrived, and if he were to go out at this time, he would probably be torn to shreds by the people of the divine dragon race in less than a breath of time. Although the divine dragon race came suddenly, Su Yun's army had always been waiting for them, and at the moment, there were already 1,000,000 of them, all of them holding onto their weapons, blocking the outside of the enchantment. Densely packed and majestic, the dense immortal qi surrounding them seemed to want to compete with the dragon's might. The mechanical immortal beasts created by Tianming had also been activated. Surging energy was emitted, and even the mystical dragons were shocked. After Su Yun ruled over a few immortal sects and 2 realms, he gathered a large amount of wealth to build this encampment, and Wei Ming specially took out the ancient books and secret manuals of the Great Linglong Palace that recorded the mechanisms and array seals, and was then specially built by 1,000 immortals that were proficient in array seals and mechanisms. Although the attack and defense system here could not be said to be the best in the immortal world, it could at least be ranked in the top 5, and even a divine dragon would not be able to easily break through it. Although the mystical dragons had surrounded the encampment, they could not break in for the time being. The enchantment only blocked the outside, but not the inside. The people inside could obviously treat the mystical dragons outside as live targets. The people of the divine dragon race are so impressive. At that moment, a mocking voice rang out from within the barrier. The Azure Dragon Elder looked over and saw that it was Su Yun. Su Yun, how dare you? He actually dared to slay a dragon. He even captured my divine dragon race. Do you know what you're doing? Aren't you afraid of the wrath of my divine dragon race? The Azure Dragon Great Clan Elder roared at Su Yun. His voice was extremely loud, as though he wanted to use his voice to shock Su Yun. But Su Yun did not buy it at all. He shook his head. Could it be that your arrogance is innate? Why couldn't they just talk it out peacefully? By the way, did you bring the soul-gathering pearl? How can you covet the treasures of my divine dragon race? Without waiting for the Azure Dragon Great Elder to speak, a divine dragon whose entire body was glowing with blue light shouted out. Su Yun looked at the blue dragon and realized that its appearance was somewhat similar to the ice divine dragon, and the way it looked at Su Yun was also filled with anger, killing intent leaking out. It was likely that this dragon had a deep relationship with the ice divine dragon. Su Yun frowned. He looked at the divine dragon and said indifferently, "So you're saying that you're not willing to hand over the Spirit Congregation pill? You still have the guts to ask us for the Spirit Congregation pill?" The Azure Dragon Clan Elder snorted. "The ignorant are truly fearless. Stinking brat, if you obediently release my divine dragon clansmen and obediently surrender, perhaps we can still spare your life. If you continue to be stubborn and resist pointlessly, I guarantee that your soul will suffer in my draconic penitentiary for eternity." The draconic penitentiary was the place where the divine dragon clan held prisoners. There were many rumors about the draconic penitentiary in the immortal world. The divine dragon clan had a long history, and traitors were not the only traitors in history. Most of the traitors were captured by the divine dragon clan and imprisoned in the draconic penitentiary. It was said that those who were imprisoned in the draconic penitentiary could never come out again. They had to suffer the burning of the sun and the biting of the ice at all times. Moreover, the sun and ice in the draconic penitentiary would tear a person's soul apart and reform it. Su Yun did not care about the Azure Dragon Great Clan Elder's words, and only gestured to Faceless, who was behind him. Faceless nodded, turned, and left. After a while, the 4 divine dragon races were brought over, and Su Luluo followed along. Everyone knew that the divine dragon race would come, but they didn't expect it to be so fast. I'll give you half an incense stick of time to immediately hand over the soul-gathering pearl. Otherwise, their bodies and souls will not be able to be preserved. Su Yun raised his dual moon sword and pointed at one of them's neck and said indifferently, "You dare." The Azure Dragon Clan Elder was furious. The surrounding divine dragons were also roaring nonstop. This was completely trampling on the dignity of the divine dragon race. The divine dragon race had existed in the immortal world for so many years, but no one had ever dared to speak to them like this. Even the divine eagle race of the past would not do such a thing. If we don't kill these immortals, where will our divine dragon race's face go? The Azure Dragon Great Clan Elder thought. "You think I don't dare?" Su Yun snorted. He turned and looked at the divine dragon race. "Don't blame me. It was your clansmen who disregarded your life. They wanted to test my courage. There was no other way. I could only respond to them." With that said, Su Yun's sword immediately descended. Crack! The head of the divine dragon race fell down, and dragon blood that was suffused with a golden light immediately gushed out. His body fell limply to the ground, his soul overflowing, but the moment it appeared, it was smashed into by Xing by who was holding a transparent glass bottle. He struggled nonstop, but was unable to rush out of the bottle. Seeing that, the three divine dragon race people at the side trembled in fear. The divine dragons outside were even more furious. They crazily attacked the barrier. But just as they got close to the barrier, Su Yun's army started to counterattack, the dense spells that even the divine dragons could not resist. Su Yun had too many people, and his methods were not ordinary. Adding on the offensive turret, if he did not quickly break through the barrier, even the divine dragons would be powerless. The people of divine dragon race never thought that Su Yun would be so ruthless to kill just like that. Without the slightest hesitation, "Bastard!" The Azure Dragon Great Clan Elder roared, and fiercely slammed his claw towards the barrier. Clang! One layer of the barrier shattered, but behind it, there were still nearly 100 barriers. Su Yun secretly snorted. He raised the dual moon sword and swung it out of the barrier again. The sword chi burst out. The god power whistled through the air. The Azure Dragon Elder felt the cold light of the sword chi. His heart was shocked. He did not dare to take it head-on, and quickly retreated. Although this child looked very young, his aura was extremely sharp and destructive. He was afraid that his cultivation was also extreme and only focused on the power of his moves. His own body strength was definitely not high. The green dragon thought, trying to figure out Su Yun's methods. "What is it? Everyone, do you still want to test my patience and courage?" Su Yun said indifferently. His soul is still here and can still be revived. With your divine dragon race's methods, it is not difficult to nurture him again. But if you continue to provoke me like this, then don't blame me for directly killing you. The cold voice agitated every mystical dragon. Su Yun used his methods to prove that his words were not a joke. The faces of the Azure Dragon and the rest turned ugly. They looked at each other and saw the anger and killing intent in each other's eyes toward Su Yun. If you're still hesitating, then there's no need to talk. After all, my patience isn't very good. Seeing that none of the divine dragons spoke, Su Yun snorted, raised his hand, and prepared to kill the second person. "Stop!" Seeing that, the Azure Dragon Elder shouted anxiously. "Su Yun, aren't you afraid that my divine dragon race will raise your encampment to the ground? Aren't you afraid that we'll kill you?" Just as he finished speaking, an ear-piercing sound rang out, and dragon blood splattered again. In the eyes of the 1,000 or so divine dragons, another dragon was mercilessly killed. The Azure Dragon and the rest widened their eyes. "Don't use that ridiculous reason to threaten me. I don't know much about your divine dragon race, but I believe that you don't know much about me either. Since I dare to attack the immortal court, I don't care about fighting with you. Now, I'll only ask you one thing. Are you going to hand over the soul gathering pearl or not? If you don't hand it over, then the next time, not only will the two of them be killed, even their souls will be destroyed." His face turned sinister. "I'm not joking. You can test my determination." The ice-cold voice stimulated the hearts of every dragon. The scene became solemn. Although the divine dragon race was strong, it was extremely difficult for them to reproduce. The hostages in Su Yun's hands were all of the younger generation of the divine dragon race, and were the future hope of the divine dragon race. If they would be sacrificed here, it would be a huge loss to the divine dragon race. Perhaps Su Yun did not know that among the four of them, one of the two female divine dragons was even the granddaughter of the Azure Dragon Great Clan Elder. However, he did not dare to speak, in case Su Yun raised the conditions of the negotiation. The scene was at an impasse. However, Su Yun was more concerned about the life of the Realm Master. His patience was running out bit by bit, and his eyes became ice-cold. "Humph! What arrogance! Just because you defeated an already rotten immortal world organization, you have become so arrogant, conceited, and supercilious. If you guys succeed in today's matter, then wouldn't you, Su Yun, become the second immortal judge and rule over my immortal world?" At this moment, a voice floated over from afar. Su Yun and the rest of the divine dragons looked towards the source of the voice, only to see a large black shadow appearing in the horizon. After the black shadow appeared, a large amount of terrifying lightning overflowed from the surroundings, and with a flash of lightning, these people landed on the ground, as though they had teleported. It was extremely strange. As fast as lightning, there are at least 200,000 people here. To be able to drag so many people, how powerful must he be? Someone from the divine dragon race recognized this method and could not help but exclaim. Suyin looked at the person who had arrived. These people were dressed in bright armor. All of them had solemn expressions. They looked at Su Yun with resentment. Their gazes were unkind. One look was enough to tell that they were enemies and not friends. Chapter 14:01. Master, these are all people from the extreme martial school. It seems like they are here to seek revenge. The yellow-haired, white-skinned guy in the lead is the current sect leader of the extreme martial school, the ultimate martial ancestor. His strength is at the origin void realm. He is proficient in the divine technique ultimate martial samsara. He is extremely powerful. Even the divine eagle lord has to respect him. He is not easy to deal with. Wei Ming, who was behind him, walked forward and whispered into his ear. Suya nodded and did not make a sound. The ultimate martial ancestor's eyes opened wide, his pupils reflecting a golden light. He stared at Su Yun and shouted, "Is it you who harmed my disciple's life?" But with that said, Su Yun retracted his gaze and no longer looked at the ultimate martial ancestor. As for an answer, there was even less. Seeing that, the ultimate martial ancestor felt that his face had lost all light. The killing intent in his eyes continued to rise. "Bastard, are you deaf? Didn't you hear my sect leader talking to you?" A white-skinned young man shouted at Su Yun. "Where did this bunch of dogs come from? Making so much noise in my ear, it's so annoying." Su Yun pretended to dig his ears, but still did not look at the people from the extreme martial school, and instead shouted at the Azure Dragon clan elder. "All right, my patience is limited. Now, quickly give me an answer. Are you going to give it or not?" The ultimate martial ancestor frowned. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. He stared at Su Yun, but did not say anything. The Azure Dragon clan elder was at a loss. He did not know if he should agree to Su Yun, but just then, the blue dragon beside him suddenly came over and said in a low voice, "Great clan elder, why don't you agree to him first and hand over the soul gathering pearl to him? No matter what, save him first. As long as we save him first, we can attack unscrupulously, kill Su Yun, and snatch the soul gathering pearl. Isn't that killing two birds with one stone?" Hearing that, the Azure Dragon's eyes lit up. He looked at the people from the extreme martial school beside him and nodded. "Good idea. With the help of the people from the extreme martial school, it won't take too long to shatter these enchantments. If we go all out, we will definitely succeed." The blue dragon nodded and immediately roared. "Su Yun, we agree to your conditions. We agree to use the soul gathering pearl to exchange for the lives of the four of them. You must not make a move, otherwise you will not get anything. You will also lose your own life. If you agree, then so be it. Why do you need to threaten me? Do you still think that your laughable strength can scare me?" Su Yun was extremely unhappy. He realized that almost every word that the divine dragon race said to him contained a threatening tone. Was this how they usually interacted with other immortals? A hint of anger flashed past Lan Long's eyes, but he did not flare up. He nodded at the person behind him, and very quickly, a box made of immortal wood was carried over. He opened the box, and inside was a dazzling golden bead that emitted golden light like a small sun. The aura that emanated from the bead was shockingly divine power. "This must be the soul-gathering pearl," Qin Qianlong said hurriedly. "Bring the gathering soul pearl to the enchantment boundary." Su Yun said lightly, "Send him out first, or else don't even think about getting the soul-gathering pearl." Elder Blue Dragon shouted, "You don't believe me? But I won't believe you either. But you have to understand one thing. Even if I obtain the soul-gathering pearl, I won't be able to escape. There's no point in killing these four people. You guys will still find me to settle the score. Although I, Su Yun, am a bastard, I also understand the principle of leaving a way out, but you guys are different. If I hand over the person first, you guys will definitely not hand over the soul-gathering pearl to me, right?" These divine dragons were so unwilling. Su Yun did not dare guarantee that they would keep their word. He originally thought that he would have to waste more words. But who would have thought that these divine dragons would be so straightforward and directly send the soul gathering pearl to the side of the enchantment. "You're right. All right, I'll give his pearl to you." Everyone was surprised. Su Yun gave Qin Qianlong a look, and Qin Qianlong immediately flew to the side of the enchantment, opened a small circle of enchantment, and brought the soul-gathering pearl in. "Immediately send it to Hu Qianmei, and ask the experts of the Eagle clan to help with the treatment." Su Yun bellowed. "Yes, sir." Qin Qianlong did not dare to be careless, and immediately ran towards the encampment. The divine dragon outside roared, "Su Yun, since you have already obtained my clan's soul-gathering pearl, why aren't you releasing him?" "Don't be anxious," Su Yun said indifferently. "I have never seen the soul-gathering pearl before, and do not know if it is real or fake. After using it and confirming that it is real, it will not be too late to release him, right? It's not like I will run away." Unexpectedly, when he said that, the Azure Dragon Elder slapped his thigh and was immediately stunned. "You're not keeping your promise?" "Promise? I didn't say I wouldn't let it go. As for when to release it, that is my freedom," Su Yun said indifferently. "You." The Azure Dragon was infuriated and anxiously roared, "Attack! Take back the soul-gathering pearl." "Yes, sir." The surrounding divine dragons immediately opened their mouths and began to attack the enchantment. The Azure Dragon Elder did not expect Su Yun to use it directly. After all, the soul-gathering pearl could only be used as a complementary material. If an ordinary person wanted to use it, they would have to spend time to prepare, but Su Yun had clearly done all the preparation work. He did not expect this and was now anxious, so he immediately ordered to attack. Over 1,000 divine dragons crazily attacked, causing the enchantment to break one layer every 30 breaths of time, an extremely fast speed. The people from the extreme martial sect could no longer watch. The extreme martial ancestor stared at Su Yun with hatred in his eyes. He leaped up and roared, "Azure Dragon Elder, don't be anxious. Wait for me to help you. Attack, capture, and kill Su Yun." Kill. The people from the divine dragon race and the extreme martial sect all moved. Their attacks swept towards Su Yun like a torrential storm. The enchantment was broken layer by layer. Although the defensive system was strong, it could not withstand such a terrifying attack. "Su Yun, I will personally kill you and avenge my son." The blue dragon roared. Using some unknown immortal technique, his body flashed and suddenly jumped over the last few enchantments, directly appearing inside the enchantment. He twisted his huge dragon body, releasing his dragon's might. A terrifying dragon pressure fiercely enveloped Su Yun. The blue dragon was the right protector of the divine dragon race. He was powerful and had a high position in the divine dragon race. He only had one son, the ice dragon, and in order to nurture this son, he had specially used some methods to steal the martial dragon soul that should have belonged to the patriarch's son, and secretly used it on the ice dragon's body, causing the ice dragon's talent to be astonishing. And the people of the clan thought highly of him. Although the patriarch and his children had noticed it, it was already too late. He could have relied on his son to gain a foothold in the clan. In time, when the ice dragon grew up, he would even have the chips to compete for the position of patriarch, but all of this had been destroyed. Originally, the decisive battle with Su Yun should have been fought by the Azure Dragon clan elder, but he was rejected by the patriarch and changed to the ice dragon. Su Yun was unknown, so the blue dragon did not care. From the looks of it today, he had been careless. He had underestimated Su Yun. He had even underestimated the patriarch of the divine dragon race. Seeing that Su Yun was standing there motionlessly and was not moved at all by his appearance, the killing intent in the blue dragon's eyes grew cold. He clawed at him. "I will pull out your tendons and skin you alive, and refine your bones and soul." The gigantic dragon claw swept up the destructive intent, tearing apart the void, capable of shattering everything. When the surrounding people saw this, they were shocked beyond compare. Even an expert like Qin Qianlong would not be able to match up. The blue dragon was indeed worthy of being the protector of the divine dragon race. His strength was simply indescribable. However, just as the sharp claws approached, A wave of divine power began to attack the blue dragon's claws like a tide. What a dense divine power was it, this guys? The blue dragon was shocked, but he refused to give up. He activated all of his strength, and the sharp claws slowly advanced forward. However, just as the blue dragon was still persevering, the divine power that was attacking him suddenly split up, bypassing the sharp claws and striking towards his body. At the same time, a cold light shot over. The blue dragon was shocked and immediately dodged, but it was too late. The cold light pierced through his dragon abdomen, and he anxiously struggled backwards. Dragon blood splattered everywhere, and he was in a sorry state. Looking at Su Yun, he had already retracted his divine power and stood proudly in the sky with his sword in one hand. At this moment, the blue dragon knew that the kid in front of him was not as simple as he had imagined. However, he could feel countless rays of light coming from all directions. Many people were shocked to see that the blue dragon was injured. The blue dragon frowned, feeling that he had lost face. He snorted at Su Yun and shouted, "Shameless! You actually ambushed me. Do you only know how to use such despicable methods?" Sneak attack? Su Yun was stunned. It seemed like the blue dragon attacked first. Moreover, the two of them were fighting head-on. How could there be a sneak attack? Su Yun looked at the blue dragon, and seeing the look in his eyes, he immediately understood that the blue dragon had said that because he could not keep his face. He sneered again and mocked. "Elder Blue Dragon, what you said is wrong. You attacked first, and I raised my sword to counterattack. How can I sneak attack? Don't tell me you're fighting me with your eyes closed. What's more, do I need a sneak attack to deal with you?" Su Yun's words were extremely heavy, causing the surrounding people to be shocked. What an arrogant young man. He actually dared to say such words. The blue dragon was enraged. His eyes turned red as he roared. "No one can save you today. You must die." With that, the huge dragon body rushed forward again. "It's not certain who will die." Su Yun secretly snorted, then raised his sword and rushed forward. The blue dragon opened its mouth and spat out a surge of cold water, pouncing towards Su Yun. The cold water was attached to the god power, transforming into many sharp swords that flew towards Su Yun. At this moment, Su Yun, whose sword arts had already reached the limitless realm, was not afraid in the slightest when facing such a method. In terms of cultivation, he was not weaker than the blue dragon, but the blue dragon only relied on its appearance to judge the depth of Su Yun's strength. He raised his sword with one hand, and a wave of god power condensed into sword chi, breaking through the waves. Then, with a slight movement of his fingers, the sword art was unleashed, and layers of ripples appeared in the air around the blue dragon, like raindrops falling into a calm lake. Seeing that the situation was not good, the blue dragon activated his spell again, and a faint water curtain appeared around his body, like a protective shield, and within the ripples, a large number of chi swords shot out, densely packed like raindrops. The water curtain was crazily bombarded by the chi swords. The water curtain gradually thinned and was actually on the verge of shattering under the constant consumption of the chi sword. What? The blue dragon's heart skipped a beat. But at this moment, a ruthless light rushed over from afar, shattering the water curtain with lightning speed and piercing through the blue dragon's body. Chapter 1402. Blue Dragon wanted to twist his huge body, but he discovered that he no longer had much strength left in his body. Looking down, he saw that his heart had been completely pierced through, and dragon blood was flowing out like a fountain. Fatal wound. Blue Dragon's eyes widened. He couldn't believe that he would die here, and it was at the hands of a nameless nobody. What a terrifying sword strike this was. It was impossible to guard against, reaping lives. "I can't accept this." The blue dragon groaned, but its body gradually softened. When its soul was just separated from its body, Su Yun had already rushed over and swallowed it without any hesitation. Another divine dragon had fallen. When the Azure Dragon Elder outside the enchantment saw this scene, his internal organs could not help but be burned by the flames of his liver. There were very few people in the divine dragon race, but now, 4 of them had been slaughtered by Su Yun. For divine dragons, how much time did the divine dragon race need to spend to nurture them? I won't kill you. I swear not to be a dragon. The azure dragon elder roared, transforming into an azure dragon, smashing the last 2 layers of enchantment and pouncing towards Su Yun. Qin Qianlong rushed forward to fight, but was sent flying by a single claw. The difference in strength was too great. Qin Qianlong was only at the peak of the spirit god, and after following Su Yun, he did not stop cultivating for a moment and was the strongest amongst the few in charge. After the disaster of the Hidden Dragon Hall last time, his strength had regressed a little, but with Su Yun's help, he had still reached this realm. But even so, facing the Azure Dragon Elder, he was still no match for him. This elder's strength did not belong to the divine Eagle Lord and Sword Ancestor. If a great clan elder of the divine dragon race had such methods, then how terrifying would the patriarch be? Su Yun used his surging divine power to attack, but was easily torn apart by the Azure Dragon Elder. When the dragon's might struck, Su Yun actually felt as if his entire body was being punched. The dragon's might had materialized. Scram! Su Yun suddenly bellowed. A wave of air rushed out from his mouth and actually forcefully pushed back the dragon's might. And he even rushed forward with his sword. The mournful sword tip had the feeling of connecting the heaven and earth. The Azure Dragon Elder's senses were sharp. He could sense Su Yun's slight change, penetrating heaven and earth. So like a world, this guy could already use divine power as he pleased. In other words, he was already about to cross the deity returning realm. Even the Lord had not stepped into this realm. If he did not get rid of this person, if he were to really step into this realm in the future, he would be a great threat to the divine dragon race. Pucci. Su Yun's sword pierced through the thick scales on the Azure Dragon Clan Elder's body. All of his power and might were scattered. He could not block Su Yun at all, and his own defense was useless in front of the god power. It was like paper. Such powerful divine power. The power of this strike has already surpassed that of Elder Azure Dragon. It seems that this person was able to kill the Grand Immortal Judge not because of the Sword Ancestor or the Eagle Clan Patriarch, but because he truly has the strength to do so. The ultimate martial ancestor who was rushing over hesitated. Su Yun was so powerful that he actually felt a trace of fear. The Azure Dragon Clan Elder transformed into his human form and struck towards Su Yun with his palm. His palm flickered with a few reincarnation divine seals. It was extremely terrifying. Su Yun leaped back and dodged. His speed was too fast. Strength, speed, senses. Su Yun had the upper hand in all of these. The Azure Dragon Clan Elder was not an idiot. He knew that if he continued to fight head-on, he would not be Su Yun's match. At the very least, it would be extremely difficult for him to kill Su Yun. Ancestor, what are you still standing there for? This child is a calamity to the immortal world. He is sinister and cunning. If we do not get rid of him, he will definitely become a great calamity in the future. Didn't you want to take revenge for your beloved disciple? Hurry up and follow me to kill this person. Just then, the Azure Dragon Clan Elder suddenly shouted at the ultimate martial ancestor. The old ancestor frowned and snorted to himself. This Azure Dragon, if I can't beat him, I have to drag him down with me. However, what the Azure Dragon Clan Elder said was not wrong. If he were to just watch as the Azure Dragon was killed by Su Yun, it would be very difficult for him to deal with Su Yun by himself. Azure Dragon Clan Elder, don't worry, this child will definitely die today. No one can protect him. The ultimate martial ancestor bellowed. He suddenly leaped up, transforming into a gigantic shadow image. Covering half of the sky, he raised his hand high up and slapped towards Su Yun. Divine technique, extreme martial. Howl! When the gigantic illusory palm fell, it actually gave off a mournful feeling as if ghosts were crying and gods were howling. A terrifying pressure that caused the world to suffocate instantly attacked. It was not a problem for Su Yun to deal with the Azure Dragon Clan Elder, but at this time, the ultimate martial ancestor, whose strength had also reached the void returning realm, was not good. Xing Bai, Kai Tian, and the others were leading their men to deal with the people from the ultimate martial sect and the divine dragon that had rushed in. Wei Ming led his men to block the entrance of the middle level of the encampment, preventing the Divine Dragon Clan people from rushing in and massacring them. The ultimate martial ancestors' moves were ruthless and cruel. Almost every move would shatter the body and destroy the soul. Once a vital point was struck, there would be no possibility of revival, and the soul would be directly burned and destroyed. Even the soul-gathering pearl would not be able to save him. Compared to the ancestor, the Azure Dragon Clan was much more cautious, probably because he had suffered a loss from Su Yun before, so he was afraid. The two of them were experts of the Void Returning Realm. If Su Yun were to fall into their fight, he would only be attacked from the front and back. He immediately activated his sword art, controlling the billions of swords of divine power, and continuously consumed them. Is that all you have? Trash. Seeing that Su Yun did not dare to step forward and only used his sword to attack, the disdain and contempt in his eyes became even stronger. He immediately bowed and shot out, looking for Su Yun. You're courting death. Su Yun's eyes turned cold. He suddenly waved his hand, his fingers moving quickly. The limitless sword arts continued to unleash the limitless sword arts, causing a large number of chi swords to shoot out from the air around him. But these chi swords were not aimed at the ultimate martial ancestor, but were linked together, transforming into a long chain of swords that wrapped around the ancestor. Su Yun's control over chi and the imperial sword had already reached an extremely exquisite level. The ancestor had never seen such a method before. Looking at the sword chi that was binding him, his expression became ugly. He struggled and broke the iron chain, but just as the iron chain broke, a new chi sword condensed beside it, and the new chain of swords once again bound him. As long as Su Yun was here, this restriction would never stop. Whiz. Just then, Su Yun rushed over. Not good. The ancestor anxiously shouted to the Azure Dragon behind him, "Elder, save me." However, the Azure Dragon Grand Elder remained indifferent. He stood on the spot and watched the scene unfold in silence. The ancestor's pupils dilated as he looked at the expressionless Azure Dragon Elder in disbelief. He could not understand why the Azure Dragon did not save him. Could it be that the Azure Dragon thought that he could fight against Su Yun with his own strength? Slash! The double moon sword was mixed with a terrifying destructive power as it slashed towards the ancestor, instantly tearing his body apart. Blood splattered everywhere, and the black-robed man became even more domineering and demonic. A piece of trash. If he dies, then so be it, the Azure Dragon ancestor said indifferently. You want to fight me alone? Su Yun held onto his sword with one hand and stared at the Azure Dragon. No, I just want the people of the extreme martial sect to go even crazier. A strange smile surfaced on the Azure Dragon's face. Su Yun frowned. He looked left and right, only to see the hundreds of thousands of extreme martial sect people rushing towards him like crazy. He killed the sect leader, avenged the sect leader. Mournful and angry roars continued to ring out. So the ancestor planned to use the extreme martial sect's people to restrain Su Yun. After all, he was powerless to save the ancestor, and he was well aware of the current situation. If he forcefully saved the ancestor, he believed that he would be injured by Su Yun, and the gains would not make up for the losses. Since that was the case, it was better not to save him. If the sect leader was killed, the people of the extreme martial sect would definitely go crazy and seek revenge on Su Yun. With so many cannon fodder to restrain Su Yun and create an opportunity for him, it would be even more advantageous for Su Yun. The Azure Dragon's plan was sound, but he did not know that Su Yun had already locked his target onto him. A sword chain was formed again and swept towards the Azure Dragon Elder. The chi chain released a rumbling sound. It was magnificent and majestic. The Azure Dragon glanced at the sword chain, a trace of disdain flashing in his eyes. Do you think I'm that trash, the extreme martial ancestor? You want to trap me with this insignificant skill? Ridiculous. With that said, he retreated, intending to let Su Yun fight with the people from the extreme martial sect. But just as he was about to move, he suddenly realized that the pitch-black figure in his line of sight had disappeared. What? The Azure Dragon was shocked and anxiously looked behind him. Nothing. Left? Nothing. right? Up there? Nothing. He did not approach him, and there was no aura around him. The azure dragon's face turned slightly cold. He calmed his heart and finally caught a glimpse of the aura rippling in the air. Following the aura, he also saw that person. As it turned out, the reason why he released the chains of swords and suddenly disappeared was not because he wanted to slay the azure dragon, but to restrain him and attract his attention before he retreated. At this moment, Su Yun was actually standing thousands of miles away. Seeing this scene, the azure dragon laughed out loud. "Ha ha! I thought you were powerful. So it was just a bluff, ha ha. People of the extreme martial sect, this person killed your sect leader and even slaughtered my divine dragon clan. His crimes are heinous and unforgivable. Now, eliminate this person, and I will uphold justice for you." The azure dragon roared. "Humph! He will definitely die a miserable death." The people from the extreme martial sect roared with hostility. "Then let's see who will be more miserable." Su Yun said indifferently, but he was no longer using his sword. Unknowingly, a huge fan was already in his hand. "What's that?" The azure dragon elder frowned. He felt that he had seen this fan somewhere before, but he could not remember where he had seen it. But in the next second, Su Yun raised his fan high and waved it towards the countless people from the extreme martial sect. Whoosh! A gale that was filled with endless destructive power was formed the moment the fan fell. With a terrifying strength that could tear apart heaven and earth, it blew into the distance. The gale did not stop, as though a ghost was roaring. The countless disciples of the extreme martial sect were directly torn apart by the gale and were blown away by the wind. The originally noisy sky, following the descent of the fan, immediately became quiet. Chapter 14:03. The gale gradually weakened and the sky became clean. This fan did not even leave behind the smell of blood, much less a body of flesh and blood. The azure dragon was stunned. He was completely dumbfounded as he watched this scene. "That's flowing feather mysterious fan?" He recognized this treasure. Only the flowing feather mysterious fan could produce such power. No wonder Su Yun was fearless. With this item in hand, no matter how many troops you had, it would be useless. In front of it, there were just withered leaves. What kind of terrifying method was this? More than half of the elites of the extreme martial school had died miserably just like that. Was such a huge sect nothing but rubble in his eyes? The azure dragon was alarmed. Seeing that the man had turned his gaze towards him, fear surged in his heart. Feeling that something was wrong, he immediately turned and prepared to escape. But at this moment, the air rippled, and a hand suddenly extended out from the air, grabbing onto his leg and pulling him into the air. The scene in the azure dragon's eyes flashed, and before he could react, he had already appeared in front of Su Yun. A large number of chi swords slashed towards him. The dense and overbearing attacks seemed to be endless. "No!" The azure dragon roared, his skin releasing waves of green light. With such a powerful force, he continuously attacked the chi swords that were attacking him, shattering them into pieces. "You forced me to do this." The azure dragon struggled free from Su Yun's restraints, his palms suddenly transforming into a terrifying dragon claw, reaching towards his chest. The azure dragon used all of his strength, his sharp claws surging with destructive power, as though nothing could contend against it. However, before the claws could touch the azure dragon, a hand suddenly darted over from the side and easily cut open the azure dragon's sharp claws. The palm was filled with sharp and terrifying sword chi. "Ah!" The azure dragon let out a miserable cry. This person no longer needed the help of a sword. His entire body, even a hair, could be used as a sword. The azure dragon elder's prideful heart finally wavered as he stared at the man in front of him, whose face was filled with a baleful aura. He realized that the divine dragon tribe was not invincible, nor were they fearless. He had experienced many things in order to reach where he was today. However, his journey was about to end here. "Su Yun, you can't kill me, otherwise you won't be able to withstand the anger of the divine dragon race." The azure dragon elder roared. But Su Yun's eyes were abnormally calm, like two bottomless ancient wells, causing people's hair to stand on end. Can't afford it? What? If I don't kill you, will the divine dragon race let me go? I have already killed several of your divine dragons, and the divine dragon race will definitely not let this matter rest. Therefore, killing you might make it easier for me to deal with the divine dragon race in the future. You? The Azure Dragon Elder's eyes widened in shock. Su Yun was right. Even if they did not kill him, the divine dragon race would not let Su Yun go. Thinking of this, he did not dare to threaten Su Yun anymore, and hurriedly shouted, Su Yun, I was wrong, so don't kill me. As long as you don't kill me, we'll drop this matter. I guarantee that the Divine Dragon Clan won't make things difficult for you, and the Primordial Heavenly Gods Council won't make things difficult for you. What do you think? Nothing, Su Yun said coldly. I have long lost my patience with all of you. You forced me to do this. The Azure Dragon knew that Su Yun would not let him go. Suddenly, his head turned into a dragon's head and bit towards Su Yun. Su Yun let go of his hand and retreated. Seeing that, the Azure Dragon anxiously turned and ran. But before he could run far, the strange hand appeared behind him again and pulled him back in an instant. But this time, it was accompanied by a mournful sword. A sword light that caused the world to lose its color entered his eyes. This sword light seemed to overshadow the light of all the spells. Nothing in the world could compare to it. This was an unparalleled attack. Even the Azure Dragon was dazzled by this attack, but very quickly his vision gradually dimmed because this attack had already pierced through his throat. The terrifying power on the sword spread throughout his entire body like an electric current. His body instantly collapsed, and his soul leaked out, being devoured by Su Yun. The Azure Dragon Great Clan Elder had fallen. Seeing that, the surrounding people all turned pale with fright. Even the Azure Dragon Great Clan Elder was not Su Yun's match. Could the people from the Divine Dragon race deal with him? At this moment, Su Yun was like a peerless god of death. Anyone who dared to provoke him would be slaughtered, and no one could stop him. Amidst the vast green clouds, a large group of immortals were flying forward. These immortals were dressed in yellow robes with yin and yang patterns on their chests. They were stepping on clouds of yin and yang, and their speed was extremely fast. Their chi was extremely dense and powerful. When the surrounding immortals saw such a group of terrifying immortals, they all took a detour, afraid of offending them. Qing Ping, is what you said true? Qi Yin and the others really died in Su Yun's hands? A middle-aged man with red hair and red eyebrows held onto a horsetail whisk and shouted with an ice-cold expression. Reporting to Master, yes, Su Yun is extremely arrogant. He clearly knows that senior brother Qi Yin is from my sun-worshipping temple, but he still dares to kill him. He is completely looking down on us. Senior brother Qi Yin and the others died so miserably, not even their souls were left. If not for me escaping by luck, I'm afraid I would have been silenced by them. A skinny man at the side said with a bitter face, Bastard. When the red-haired and red-eyebrows sage Tianyang heard this, he could not help but shout out, the anger in his eyes faintly appearing. Su Yun, he's just a nameless junior, yet he dares to be so arrogant. Does he really think that the people of the immortal realm are as ignorant as the immortal court? Wait for me to go and capture him. I'll destroy his body and capture his soul. Let's see how arrogant he can be. I've never heard of this person before. I think he hasn't been in the immortal realm for long. Maybe he has obtained some luck, but how can he compare to a supreme expert like you, Master? I'm afraid that if Master were to stand in front of him, he would be so scared that his entire body would tremble and he would piss his pants. Ha ha ha. The disciples at the side could not help but laugh out loud. I never thought that the people of Baiyang Daoist Temple are just people who talk big. Although I don't put that Su Yun in my eyes, but your Baiyang Daoist Temple, in them, should be about the same, right? You're just a bunch of trash. The pot calling the kettle black. Just then, a voice floated into the ears of the group of people. Everyone stopped laughing and looked angrily towards the source of the voice, only to see a group of people riding on white horses. All of them were dressed in white robes. The men and women were all handsome and beautiful, and the horses they rode on had white wings. their feet stepping on auspicious clouds. It was very mystical. People from Bai E Temple, someone exclaimed. Bai E Temple, sect leader Shue Bai E, had been the immortal world for countless years, had a deep foundation, was a powerful sect in the immortal world, and it was said that the people in Bai E Temple were all talented and outstanding people. And Bai E Temple's absolute art, Bai E divine technique, was an unparalleled secret technique. When trained to the peak, it could even overturn the universe and become the ruler of the world. It was said that the ancestor of Bai E Temple had already trained the Bai E divine technique to the peak and became an unparalleled lord, but after the ancestor mastered the technique, he disappeared without a trace, and no one knew where he went. Some said that he went to a higher plane, and some said that he went into cultivation deviation and fell into a predicament, so he did not come out and had always been in Bai E Temple. There were many rumors, and no one knew if it was true or false. Shue Bai, Tianyang's sect master, stared at the handsome man riding on a big horse at the front, dressed in white robes and a snow crown, and shouted coldly, Isn't this old Taoist Tianyang? Why do you have the leisure to bring a bunch of trash disciples out for a stroll? Are you here to make a fool of yourself? Shue Bai led the Pegasus with a brilliant smile. What did you say? The disciple at the side glared at Shue Bai, but he was stopped by Tianyang's sect master, who stared at Shue Bai and said, Shue Bai, I know that your Bai Temple has already surrendered to the eternal Heaven God's Council, and I'm afraid that your goal is the same as ours, to go after Suyun, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend, so why must you provoke my Bai Yang Taoist temple? The enemy of my enemy is my friend? Shue Bai's brows twitched and looked down at these people and said with disdain, With you bunch of trash? Are you worthy of being my Bai Temple's friend? I heard that your Taoist Scarlet Flame died at Su Yun's hands, and a nameless person can kill your sex experts. So you tell me, are you not trash? You still want to have any relations with my Bai Temple? That depends on whether we are willing to pity you or not. You. Tianyang's sect master clenched his fists tightly. It was said that the Bai Temple's palace master was arrogant and had extraordinary talent, and was arrogant because of his strength. Today, it seemed that it was true. You guys walk slowly. I'm going to the outer sky region. Are you guys going to take revenge for Scarlet Flame? I don't think it's necessary. Su Yun will die. If you guys have the time, you can come and collect his corpse. With that, Shue Bai turned around, and the Pegasus galloped in the sky, rushing into the distance. Tianyang's sect master stared coldly at the direction Shue Bai left, snorted, and followed. Shue Bai and the rest were very fast. The sun-worshipping temple's people could not compare to the Pegasus, but even though they were able to pull some distance, it was not too far. When they caught up to Shue Bai and the rest, they had already stopped. Shue Bai did not bring too many people this time. Adding them up, there were only close to 10,000 Bai Temple experts. He heard that Su Yun had allied with several immortal sects, and the number of immortals in his hands exceeded 1,000,000. It was extremely shocking, but in his eyes, they were just a group of mobs and could not cause any waves. He only needed a group of elites to subdue them. Shue Bai was very confident in his own strength, and furthermore, the Bai Temple was now attached to the newly risen superpower, Eternal God Council, so he did not have to worry about anything. However, just as Shue Bai confidently rushed to the front of Su Yun's allied forces encampment, the scene in front of him caused him to frown. The scene was a mess. The corpses of the dragons and humans were everywhere. The clouds were dyed red with blood. Chapter 1404. The Azure Dragon Elder had been killed, the sect leader had been killed, and the rest of the sect had suffered heavy casualties. The only ones who could fight with Su Yun and the rest were the 1,000 or so divine dragons of the divine dragon race. But they had lost their backbone and were no longer a match for Su Yun and the rest. With 1,000,000 immortals surrounding the divine dragons, even if they were as strong as the divine dragons, it would be difficult for them to contend against them. Although their individual strength was very strong, the huge difference in numbers was not something that they could make up for, unless they could completely crush these immortals. The defensive system in the encampment had also displayed considerable power. Even if the enchantment was broken, the power of the immortal weapons and cannons was enough to give these mystical dragons a hard time. Divine dragons continued to fall, and the divine dragon race's defeat gradually revealed itself. If this goes on, even if we really break through their encampment, we will suffer heavy losses. Su Yun is hard to kill. A divine dragon forcibly retreated from the fierce battle. At this moment, his entire body was covered with wounds, and most of his dragon scales had fallen off. Looking at the spells raining down on him, his heart was heavy. The roars of the dragons continued, and the immortals continued to die. However, the mystical dragon was also gradually dragged into the grave by these frenzied immortals. The mystical dragon looked at these immortals in disbelief. He could not believe his own eyes at all. These immortals were all different in strength. Some were strong, while others were weak. But when they were gathered together, they were like a single entity, and the power they could unleash was terrifying. Be it the strong or the weak, they were all indispensable at this moment. Furthermore, these immortals exuded a chilling, murderous aura. That's right, it was baleful energy. It was the kind of baleful aura that could only be produced after experiencing countless life and death situations, facing the apocalypse, and seeing through life and death. How could this be? Why were these immortals so terrifying? Some people were clearly not strong, but they had an aura that did not lose to dragon might. Furthermore, why did they follow Su Yun with all their hearts? Why did he dare to challenge the divine dragon so recklessly? Who gave him the courage? These mystical dragons did not understand, but when a figure leaped to the forefront of the battle, into the midst of the mystical dragons, they were suddenly enlightened. It was Su Yun, the man who killed the grand immortal judge. In the immortal world for so many years, these immortals had followed Su Yun to battle all over the place, and even destroyed the #1 authority in the immortal world. In their eyes, the divine dragon race was nothing. No matter how strong they were, how could they compare to the despair they felt when they fought against the immortal world? No matter how difficult the war, they had survived, so why would they fear the current enemy? These immortals were an invincible army. They were fearless. Retreat. Finally, one of the mystical dragons could not hold on any longer. He raised his head to the sky and let out a dragon roar. Retreat? Give up? Many of the mystical dragons were indignant, but they saw that the mystical dragon was an elite of the dragon race. The elder was already dead, so it was up to him to lead the team. The order had been given, and the attitude was firm. They had no choice but to obey. This enemy is not ordinary. We will leave first and report to the clan leader. The clan leader will personally lead us to make a comeback and eradicate all of them. Kill them all. Avenge Elder Azure Dragon. The Dragon Clan elite shouted. His voice spread in all directions. All right, those mystical dragons who were unwilling nodded and agreed. But at this moment, the surrounding murderous aura suddenly increased a few notches. Make a comeback? No need. I will bring my men and kill my way to your divine dragon race. Su Yun's eyes were blood red, filled with killing intent. He stared at the mystical dragons and roared. Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Even if they escape to the ends of the earth, kill them all. Kill. All the immortals in the encampment rushed out and pounced towards the mystical dragons. The mystical dragons were stunned, and traces of fear and panic began to grow in their hearts. Su Yun actually dared to come out? Crazy. This was simply madness. Did Su Yun not know what kind of existence these fellows were? They were dragons. It was a divine dragon. It was an ancient power that even the immortal court did not dare to provoke. It was an existence that everyone in the immortal world revered as a god. But in front of this guy, he didn't seem to care at all. Very quickly, a divine dragon was knocked down by the surging crowd and was instantly dismembered. The dragon's soul was randomly devoured by the crowd and died a miserable death. What kind of cruel scene was this? When the mystical dragons saw this, they were incomparably terrified. How could they dare to stay any longer? All of them ran for their lives. Good, good, very good. Su Yun, you will pay the price for what you have done. I promise. Seeing that Su Yun was so fierce, and did not give him a chance to live. The Dragon Clan elite roared in anger. But just as he finished speaking, a hand suddenly extended out from the void beside him and grabbed onto the dragon horn on his head. Following that, a huge force dragged his dragon body into the void. The Dragon Clan elite did not have the time to react, and when he regained his senses, his huge body was already beside Su Yun. Su Yun, right in front of him. Price. Are you referring to this? Su Yun said coldly. The dual moon sword released tens of thousands of sword images. Like a gale sweeping away fallen leaves, they attacked his body. The body of the Dragon Clan elite was sliced into several pieces and fell to the ground. The power of the divine dragon race had completely collapsed. In the distance, the people from the White Cloth Shrine had already arrived. Snow White rode on a heaven horse and looked over in shock. He had personally witnessed the scene of Su Yun capturing the gigantic divine dragon to his side and forcefully killing it. It was a complete suppression of strength, a suppression of speed. Although the opponent had the body of a divine dragon, under that person's strange methods and dazzling sword techniques, the divine dragon's power was completely unable to be unleashed and was cut down. What a terrifying method. Who was this person? Snow White pondered. Master, it's the people from the White Cloth Shrine. After wiping out the Dragon Clan elite, Su Yun wanted to continue chasing, but just at that moment, Kai Tian flew over and spoke to Su Yun in a low voice. Someone from the White Cloth Shrine? Su Yun frowned. He had heard of this sect before, but Su Yun and the rest did not have any dealings with it. Why would they come? Passing by? Impossible. This place was remote, and very few immortals came here. They had probably come for the evil sword. Master, do you want to stop chasing after the divine dragon race? Deal with the people from the White Cloth Shrine? Kai Tian asked carefully. If someone else were to intervene at this time, the scene would only become even more chaotic. No need, continue chasing. Su Yun said indifferently. Let Qin Qianlong, Xing Bai, and the others continue to chase. Kill as many as you can. As for the people from the White Cloth Shrine, there's no need to bother with them. With that, he turned around and ran back into the encampment. He had already obtained the soul-gathering pearl, so he believed that the Realm Master had already gathered his soul. At that time, he only needed to guide his soul into his body to revive. Su Yun returned to the encampment, and when Shuebai saw this, he was immediately startled. They were less than 10,000 miles away from Su Yun's encampment, and with the eyesight of an immortal, he believed that he had already been discovered by Su Yun and the others. But the other party turned a blind eye and left, causing him to lose face. Humph! It seems like Su Yun truly has an undeserved reputation. We saw the Hall Master. He actually retreated in fear. A nameless rat is probably talking about this kind of person. Ha ha ha! The disciples of the White Cloth Shrine laughed out loud. In their eyes, Su Yun was just afraid of their arrival. Hall Master, what should we do? A disciple beside him asked in a low voice. A bunch of trash dares to be so arrogant and frivolous. They must be exhausted after fighting with the divine dragon race. Let's just go over. Shuebai said coldly, then drove the heaven horse towards the encampment. Shuebai was extremely unhappy with Su Yun's disregard. He always felt that it was not because Su Yun was afraid, but because he was looking down on him. How could he endure this? Set up the formation. Seeing that Shuebai and the others had arrived, Kai Tian called for a group of guards to come over, all of them staring at Shuebai seriously. Why did Su Yun run? Tell him to get the hell out here. Shuebai stared coldly at Kai Tian and shouted angrily. How arrogant! Kai Tian frowned. He knew that they had come with ill intentions, and said in a low voice, Are all of you from the White Cloth Shrine? My lord has something to take care of. If you have anything to do, please come back another day. Today is truly inconvenient. Come back another day? Shuebai rode on the heaven horse, looking down at Kai Tian from above, the arrogance in his eyes obvious. Who is Su Yun? You actually wanted to come back another day? Get the hell in there and tell him to come out and see me immediately. Take me as your master and welcome me in. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Hearing that, Kai Tian's face changed. Hall Master Shui, what do you mean? What do you mean? Don't you understand human language? I told you to scram. You are not worthy to speak to me. Shui Bai shouted. His voice actually contained a bit of immortal power. Because of the matter with Xiang Yang, Kai Tian hated the divine dragon race to the core, so when he was fighting with the divine dragon race, he rushed to the front. Although he killed the divine dragon, he was also attacked by several divine dragons and was injured. Now that Shui Bai shouted, he was actually forced to retreat, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. However, he did not retreat. He secretly swallowed the mouthful of blood in his throat, raised his hand, and shouted in a low voice, "Get ready, Walala." The guards pulled out their swords in unison, looking as if they were about to start a war. When the disciples of the White Cloth Shrine saw this, smiles appeared on their faces. The immortals who stayed behind were all injured and were not suitable to chase after them. Although their cultivation was not weak, they did not have much fighting strength left. Facing the white-clothed disciples of the Divine Palace who were waiting for them, they did not have the strength to fight at all. You want to stop me with just a bunch of weaklings? A trace of ruthlessness flashed across Shui Bai's eyes. He raised his hand and was about to give the order to attack. He had lost his patience. "Sir, are you going to start a war with me, Suyin?" At this moment, a lazy voice suddenly came out from the encampment. Shui Bai's movements froze. He looked towards the source of the voice and saw the person who had entered the encampment slowly walking out. Chapter 1405. Looking at the black-robed man who walked out, the corner of his mouth revealed a disdainful smile and snorted. "You are Su Yin, right? Who are you?" Su Yin said indifferently. This was clearly a question he knew the answer to. Even the heavens knew Shui Bai's identity. How could he not know? Snow White clothes frowned. He knew that Su Yin wanted to humiliate him, but he did not care and said coldly, "I am someone you cannot afford to offend, Su Yin. I have heard some things about you. You obtained some luck, and only then did the immortal court that was already on the verge of collapse. I have to say, you are very lucky, but let me remind you, if a person wants to be in the limelight, he must have sufficient strength. Otherwise, the tree that stands out in the forest, the wind will destroy it. Thank you for your reminder, but I am not interested in you." "Scram," Su Yin said casually. His attitude was very casual. If people respected him, he would respect them tenfold. These people from the white-clothed shrine were so rude to him, and he could not be bothered to waste his breath on them. There were still a lot of things waiting for him to take care of, and he did not have the time to waste with them. Unexpectedly, the moment he said that, the people from the white-clothed shrine were enraged. "Bastard, is this the attitude you should have when speaking to our home master? You are simply courting death. Do you know who you are talking to?" Two disciples stood up and scolded. "There is no place for the two of you to speak here, scram." Su Yin bellowed, his eyes flashing with a ruthless light. The hearts of the two white-robed disciples palpitated when they saw the man's eyes, which were filled with killing intent despite his calmness. A strange sense of fear crept up their spines. They secretly gulped and actually did not dare to retort. "Trash," Su Yin coldly snorted. The two of them were furious, but they did not dare say a word, because they could vaguely feel the killing intent that was leaking out from Su Yun's body. "You are so impressive." Snow White Clothes frowned and bellowed. "Su Yun, you are also considered a master. How can you bully these juniors? Could it be? Is this all you've got?" Su Yun glanced at him and said indifferently, "I do not have time to waste with you guys. If you have something to say, say it. If not, scram. Don't waste any more time." He went straight to the point. Shui Bai's face turned cold. He felt that he had lost face. Behind him were the elite disciples of the white-robed shrine. Su Yin still dared to say such words? Did he deliberately not want him to step down? "How dare you talk to me like that?" His voice became ferocious. "It seems like you don't plan to leave." Su Yin looked at him quietly. "Leave?" Snow White Robe snorted. He suddenly leaped up from the back of the heavenly horse. Both of his hands moved. A burst of immortal chi quickly rose from his palms. Like a silver river, it shot toward Su Yun. The destructive power rippled. "You dared to humiliate me. If I don't kill you, how can I just leave like this?" His voice floated over. Su Yin snorted in his heart. Humiliation? It seemed like it was Snow White Clothes who had been humiliating him, right? Since the other party had already made his move, there was no need for Su Yun to continue enduring. His expression was calm. With one hand behind his back, he did not move. He only raised his hand high up, his index and middle fingers pointed forward, releasing a terrifying sword chi. Like a meteor that pierced through the sky, it instantly flew out. The celestial chi, that was like a silver river, was directly dissipated by the sword chi. However, the sword chi didn't dissipate and continued to fly forward. The terrifying destructive power surged, and the speed was so fast that no one in the surroundings could feel it. Only Shue Bai Yi could sense the terrifying destructive power. His face paled as he hastily dodged. However, just as he landed on the ground, a figure flew in front of him and punched him in the chest. Whiz! Snow White Clothes' body was like a kite with its string cut, falling not far away. Seeing that, the disciples anxiously rushed forward to help Snow White Clothes up, only to see him clutching his chest and spitting out blood. His face was frighteningly pale. "Is that all you have?" Su Yun said indifferently, and slowly walked over. When the disciples saw Su Yun coming over, they all retreated in fear. Shue Bai Yi was even more alarmed. He never thought that Su Yun's strength would actually be so strong, and he could already condense a sword with his chi. The sword chi could move as he pleased, and what was even more unbelievable was that his sword chi was divine power. It was far stronger than immortal chi, far more complicated than immortal chi. In fact, he didn't even take out his own sword. In just one move, he had defeated Shue Bai Yi. Although Shue Bai Yi had also entered the Origin Void Realm, he had only just advanced, and the difference in cultivation between him and Su Yun was extremely huge. Furthermore, he had underestimated Su Yun, so it was not wrong for him to be defeated in one move. The killing intent on Su Yun's body became even stronger. Shue Bai Yi's expression turned cold. He hurriedly stood up. He could feel it. He could feel that Su Yun had already set his killing intent on him. At this time, there was no way out. Only by killing this person could he save everything. "If I don't kill you today, I swear I won't be human." Shue Bai Yi bellowed. With a wave of his hand, a feather fan appeared in his hand, and he waved it towards Su Yun, causing countless of feathers to shoot out from the feather fan. The feathers continued to move, forming a gigantic star diagram in the air that shone towards Su Yun. "Break!" Su Yun waved both of his hands. The sword chi burst forth, cutting across the star chart. The stars exploded and scattered in all directions. Kai Tian and the disciples of the white-clothed divine palace all retreated to avoid being affected. So strong. The divine power is indeed extraordinary. Just by relying on immortal chi, I definitely have no chance of winning. It seemed like he could only rely on a magic treasure. With that thought in mind, the man in white immediately touched the interspatial bag on his waist. However, as soon as he touched the interspatial bag, the space in front of him suddenly distorted. Following that, a hand reached out and grabbed his neck. Not good. This was Shue Bai Yi's heart jumped. He still remembered that Su Yun had relied on this move to forcefully pull back a divine dragon that had already escaped 1,000 miles away. He reacted quickly and threw a palm towards the hand that was extending towards him. The immortal chi was like a vast ocean as it followed. However, in the time it took for a spark to fly off of a flint, the palm suddenly retracted and scuttled into the distorted void. Snowy White Robe was stunned. Before he could react, a sharp sword rushed out of the void and instantly slashed at his arm. The speed was unimaginably fast. Poochie! With a shattering sound, an arm flew into the air. Shue Bai Yi retreated 3 steps, clutching his arm as he stared at the black-robed man with wide eyes. Impossible! Impossible! This guy was actually so powerful. I, Su Yun, have always followed the principle of not offending others if they don't offend me. I have never met you before, but when you came today, you were so overbearing and even wanted to kill me. This enmity is truly inexplicable. Su Yun walked towards Shue Bai Yi step by step and said indifferently. Shue Bai Yi's heart was filled with 10,000 regrets. but with so many people watching, he could not admit defeat. Otherwise, even if he returned alive, he would become a laughingstock. After thinking about it, he gritted his teeth. Su Yun, I admit that you are very powerful, but now, what do you want? You said before that if you don't kill me, you won't be a human. Then, what do you think I should do to you? Su Yun said indifferently. Shui Baiyi's heart skipped a beat. Since you're here, you should be prepared. All of you stay. Su Yun said coldly, his eyes flashed sharply, and he rushed straight towards Shui Baiyi. Kai Tian, who was behind him, also understood and roared in a low voice, Kill! All of the guards rushed forward and fought with the people from the white-clothed shrine. Since Shui Baiyi had already expressed his attitude, there was no need to be polite anymore. Shui Baiyi retreated a few steps, but Su Yun's speed was too fast. He could not react at all. The immortal qi around his body was shattered by Su Yun's divine power. He was completely unable to resist. A figure flashed in front of him. Shui Baiyi's entire body trembled, and he felt his entire body lose strength, and his body went limp. His forehead had already been pierced by a strand of sword qi. The remnant sword qi in the wound quickly spread through his entire body, shattering his internal organs. Shui Baiyi had fallen. The Hall Master is dead. When the disciples of the white-clothed shrine saw this scene, they were all shocked. Let's go. One of them made a prompt decision and shouted. With the Hall Master killed, it was impossible for them to fight against Su Yun. Only by retreating would they be able to save their lives. You can escape? Su Yun did not plan to let this group of people go. He had to establish his might. Otherwise, wouldn't there be people looking for trouble with him every day? With a leap, he landed in front of the disciples. With a light movement of his finger, countless qi swords shot out from the surrounding space, flying towards the crowd. The bodies of the disciples of the white-clothed shrine were directly pierced through. Countless bloody holes appeared. They mysteriously twitched a few times, then all fell to the ground. In almost an instant, nearly 10,000 people were killed. How powerful was he? Kai Tian and the rest looked at Su Yun with blazing eyes, the blood in their bodies boiling. Strong. Not only was he strong, he was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. The immortal Grand Judge was killed, and the Divine Dragon was defeated. Su Yun's image began to magnify in the hearts of the allied forces. The people of the white-clothed shrine were exterminated just like that. The tragic death of the Hall Master could be said to be a huge blow to the white-clothed shrine. However, this did not mean that the white-clothed shrine had declined. There were still a few people in the shrine who were stronger than Shui Baiyi. Clean up the battlefield, Su Yun muttered, then turned and entered the encampment. Kai Tian and the rest immediately got busy. But they did not know that in an extremely distant place, a group of people had already witnessed everything that had happened. Sage Tianyang and the people from the sun-worshipping temple. Master Ancestor, what should we do? The disciple beside him asked in fear. Sage Tianyang's face revealed a trace of mournfulness. His eyes swayed, and he said, Immediately issue the order of morality, quickly. Hearing that, the disciple was stunned for a moment, then anxiously ran down. Once the order of morality was issued, it meant that the sect that issued the order was facing an unprecedented threat, and all the immortal sects that were allied with the sun-worshipping temple would do their best to help. Sage Tianyang had witnessed Shui Baiyi's tragic death. His strength was not even comparable to Shui Baiyi, and he knew that he was not Su Yun's match, so he did not act rashly, but that did not mean that he would give up. Everyone, follow me to the Divine Dragon race. Sage Tianyang bellowed. He led his men and changed direction, leaving immediately. Chapter 1406. With a divine object like the soul-gathering pill, the Wanhua Realm Lord had truly survived unscathed. Su Yun stepped into the room excitedly, and at the moment, Hu Qianmei was taking care of her. Big brother, you're here. Hu Qianmei put down the medicine bottle in his hand, stood up, and laughed. Meier, thank you for your hard work. Su Yun nodded and looked at the weak figure on the bed. The Wanhua Realm Lord's face was pale white, but her lips were slightly red, and her originally dim eyes had regained some luster. She stared blankly at Su Yun, and after a long while, She lowered her head and said softly, "Thank you. You don't have to thank me. If not for you, we would all have died." Suyin shook his head. "We should be the ones saying thank you." Realm Lord opened her mouth, wanted to say something, but seeing Suyin looking at her with sparkling eyes, her face flushed red. She lowered her head and did not speak anymore. "During this period of time, you should rest well here. Don't think about anything, understand?" Suyin said with concern. "Yes." She gently nodded, appearing unusually obedient. Hu Qianmei, who was at the side, looked at her strangely, then looked at Suyin, her small face revealing a trace of helplessness and bitterness. "My lord!" At this moment, a shout came from outside. Suyin stood up and frowned as he looked outside. "It's only the heavens. What happened?" "The divine Eagle Clan leader is here," Kai Tian said respectfully. "Are they here to collect the 9-god wind heavenly beads?" Suyin frowned and thought, "Just give the beads to them." Suyin did not blame the divine eagle race for not interfering in the battle between Suyin and the divine dragon race. After all, the divine eagle race had suffered the pain of the immortal court and did not have much strength left. If they were to fight with the divine dragon race, it would be no different from courting death. But no matter what, since they were like this, there was no need for them to be friends. "Sir, the divine Eagle Clan leader hopes that you can meet him. He has something to discuss with you." "What's the matter?" Suyin thought for a moment. "What could they discuss?" "Big brother, you go. I'll take care of this place. Nothing will happen," Hu Qianmei said. Suyin nodded. "Then, Mayer, I'll have to trouble you." He caressed Hu Qianmei's head, then turned and left. After she left the door, Hu Qianmei sighed. She turned her eyes and looked at the Wanhua Realm Lord. "Have you fallen for Big Brother? What are you talking about? I don't understand." The Realm Master lightly shook her head. Her voice was calm. "Don't deny it. You're smarter than me. You should know what you're thinking right now." The Realm Master did not make a sound. He lowered his head. No one knew what he was thinking. "Then you think this is a good thing for me or a bad thing?" "I can only say there are good and bad." Hu Qianmei sighed. The patriarch of the divine eagle race did not bring many people this time. There were a total of 3 of them, and they were all waiting in the discussion hall. Suyin, accompanied by Kai Tian, stepped into the discussion hall, and the 3 of them stood up. "Suyin, long time no see. How have you been?" The patriarch laughed. "Dragging the patriarch's luck is not bad," Suyin said indifferently. "Patriarch, did you come here today to take back the 9-god wind heavenly pearl? I have already asked Kai Tian to prepare it. I will hand it over to your Eagle Clan later and bring it back to Eagle Mountain. This time, I will have to thank the patriarch for his help. There's no need to be polite. Although I did not intervene in the conflict between you and the divine dragon race this time, I hope you can understand my difficulties." Seeing Su Yun's calm expression, the patriarch of the divine eagle race could not help but laugh bitterly. Although Su Yun did not show any dissatisfaction towards their divine eagle race, he could unknowingly feel that there was a deep estrangement between them. "I can understand that the divine dragon race is not weak. The divine eagle race has experienced a great battle in the immortal court. The clan has suffered heavy casualties, and not participating is also something that you, the divine might patriarch, should do." Su Yun nodded. Honestly speaking, he did not blame the divine eagle race. Even though the 9-god wind heavenly pearl was lent to him by Su Yun after he threatened the patriarch of the divine eagle race, no matter what, Su Yun would still remember this favor. After all, the patriarch of the divine eagle race had used his cultivation technique to extend the life of the realm master several times. "If that's the case, that's good." The divine eagle race laughed, but very quickly his smile disappeared, and his expression became serious. "I heard that you killed the great clan elder of the divine dragon race." "The news travels quite fast," Su Yun said indifferently. "However, not only the Azure Dragon, the divine dragon race's Ice Divine Dragon, and 500 elite dragons were all slaughtered by me. SSSSS. The patriarch of the divine eagle race sucked in a breath of cold air. This was simply madness. Su Yun had already formed a death grudge with the divine dragon race, and it was already impossible to resolve it. The hall was silent for a long time. "Su Yun, from today onwards, you must be careful. The patriarch of the divine eagle race sighed. Careful? Against the divine dragon race? Not only the divine dragon race. Actually, when you killed the great immortal court, the evil sword's chi had already spread out, and someone already knew of the secret of your evil sword. I believe that in the future, you will not be at peace. The patriarch of the divine eagle race shook his head. This time, I came not only to retrieve the nine-god wind heavenly pearl, but also to give you a piece of advice. The strongest power of the divine dragon race will not be the Azure Dragon Clan Elder and the Ice Divine Dragon. You have slaughtered so many dragons, the divine dragon race will probably deal with you. You must be careful. With that, the patriarch of the divine eagle race turned and left. It was not that Su Yun had not considered these things before. He had long heard of the power of the divine dragon race, and even the immortal court did not dare to act recklessly against them. And the reason why he had fallen out with the divine dragon race was because he had no choice. Xiangyang had died in their hands. How could he endure it? Furthermore, blindly enduring was definitely not the way to solve the problem. Since things had come to this, he did not plan to escape. No matter how many enemies there were, he would just have to face them. Escaping would not solve any problems. Although the patriarch of the divine eagle race was reminding him this time, there was another meaning behind it. He wanted to draw a clear line between him and Su Yun. Su Yun had the evil sword on him and had already been spied on by countless supreme experts. If he were to get too close to him, he would only be implicated. Su Yun knew the patriarch of the divine eagle race's scruples, but he did not care. At a time like this, he could not rely on others. He could only rely on himself. After instructing Kai Tian to prepare the defensive work, Su Yun specially sent a few messengers to the true devil realm and the underworld. In this kind of situation, he needed to be fully prepared. After everything was settled, he returned to the cultivation ground and continued to cultivate. Although it did not take much effort to deal with Shui Bai and the Azure Dragon this time, he knew that this was just the beginning. The secret of the evil sword had already been spread out, and the enemies he would face in the future would only become stronger and stronger. The battle with the divine dragon race had given Su Yun a lot of insights. The people of the divine dragon race were born with the might of a dragon, and in the battle, the might of a dragon played an extremely important role. Most of the deaths and injuries of Su Yun's people were caused by the might of a dragon. This was a power that was different from a force. It could exist at the same time as the force, and it was incomparably powerful. When used together with the force, it could actually cause people to be unable to move and lose the ability to resist, let alone fight. Might and might, this was the method of the divine dragon race. Logically speaking, everyone should have their own might, but the immortals have only experienced the power and not the might. Why does the divine dragon race have it? Is it really bestowed upon them by the heavens? Su Yun closed his eyes, his mind thinking back to the battle with the divine dragon race. Right? The intimidation of power. He seemed to have thought of something. Although the immortals who had followed Su Yun to the north and south were not strong, their auras were extremely strong. This was an aura that had been tempered through blood and fire, an aura that had been nurtured through countless life and death experiences. The dragon's might was similar to it, but it was completely different from its aura. Their dragon's might came from the innate strength of the divine dragon race and their noble and outstanding bloodline. In front of any existence, the divine dragon race was high and mighty. This was their pride. This was their glory. They were existences that stood at the top of the food chain and were also the representatives of the peak of the immortal world. This created might. Might was different from aura. If power is only a representation of power, then everything in the world can have power. The wind has the might of the wind. The water has the might of the water. Even if it is a rock, when it is bestowed with some kind of terrifying power, it should also have its own might. Where's the sword? He suddenly thought of it. A sword should also have the might of a sword. He opened his eyes and pulled out the dual moon sword. The snow-cold sword body that was surrounded by flowing light seemed especially cold in this training ground. Sword Force was a compulsory course for every sword cultivator, not to mention immortals. Even the mortal sword cultivators of the Sky Martial Continent would cultivate a sword force that belonged to them, when cultivating the way of the sword. However, no one could cultivate the might of the sword. He stared at the sword and used it to comprehend. The way of the sword was long and endless, and the mysteries of the dragon's might were hidden within the source of its power. It was the pride of the dragon, and the mysteries of the sword power belonged to the source of the way of the sword, so it should be drawn out by the pride of the sword. One sword to break the heavens. One sword would shatter the earth, overturn the universe, and break all laws. Nirvana, samsara. He closed his eyes and held onto the dual moon sword with both hands. The cold, immortal sword started to tremble slightly, as though it could leave his palm at any time and soar into the sky. On the sword's body, a strange power began to emanate from it. Might Suyin stay in the training grounds for an entire 3 months before opening his eyes and planning to come out? He looked at the dual moon sword in his hand. It had already become dim and lifeless, like a broken sword that had been showcased. Perhaps any sword in the mortal realm could compare to its brilliance. But Su Yun extended his hand and gently caressed the sword blade. "It's you." The corner of his mouth raised into a smile as he stood up. But just at this moment, light footsteps came from outside the house. With a twitch of his ears, he could hear everything that was going on in the base clearly. It was Su Luluo. "Big brother, we have to retreat." Su Luluo rushed to the training grounds and shouted at Su Yun. Hearing that, Su Yun frowned. Retreat? What retreat? Why was Su Luluo so flustered? Could it be that something had happened to him? There are nearly 1,000,000 immortals outside the encampment. All of them are here to suppress us. Su Luluo's face congealed. She bit her lips and said, Chapter 1407. 1,000,000 immortals? Hearing that, Su Yun frowned. He had thought that it was only the people from the divine dragon race who had arrived, but it seemed like things were not as simple as he had imagined. Kai Tian and Wei Ming were nervously gathering their men to set up their defenses, while Faceless and Xing left the encampment to meet up with the Nether Empress and Octagon Aniseed, who had already entered the immortal world and were rushing towards the encampment. When Su Yun walked out of the training grounds, the entire Allied forces encampment was already enveloped by a terrifying pressure. Cracks appeared on the buildings, and the people walking inside were walking with heavy footsteps, their faces pale. The enchantment of the encampment had been broken by the divine dragon race, and only 10 of them had been temporarily set up, but it was useless. He walked towards the gate. Before he even arrived, he could already hear the sound of tsunami coming from outside the encampment. When he arrived outside the encampment, the scene in front of him made him feel heavy. In the horizon, countless immortals surged over. They were densely packed and were everywhere. They surrounded the encampment in an arc, each and every one of them lined up in a formation that was close to 10,000 kilometers away. Sunset Sect, Ancient Beast Sect, Cloud Sword Pavilion, Spirit Rhinoceros Peak, Sun-Worshipping Temple. The 5 great immortal sects had come out in full force. They were all blocking the front of the Allied forces encampment. How vast was the scene! Wei Ming ordered all the immortals above the Spirit Profound God to line up outside the encampment, waiting solemnly. With the enchantment gone, they could only rely on the human wall. Su Yun's side was extremely nervous. Although they had the advantage in numbers, they knew that the real enemy was not just these. Just then, a young lady dressed in a phoenix robe flew out from the Sunset Sect. She held onto a long sword with one hand, looking extremely heroic, young and beautiful, but her expression was incomparably cold. She looked at Kai Tian and the rest and shouted, "Where is Su Yun?" "I am." Su Yun did not avoid it. He directly flew out and stood at the front of the army, calmly looking at the lady. Looking at the man in black robes with a pale face, Chao Shifeng was a little surprised. She originally thought that the person who had subdued the Great Ling Long Palace, the Hidden Dragon Hall, the Carefree Palace, and the Octave Gate should be a domineering person with an extraordinary temperament. However, the man in front of her gave her a feeling of mediocrity. From head to toe, there was really nothing about him that could be associated with a powerhouse. However, If one judged a person's strength only by their eyes, then that person would be too stupid. However, Su Yun's strength did not mean much to her. In front of so many experts, no matter how strong he was, he would definitely fall. Chao Shifeng glanced at Su Yun and snorted. I was wondering who it was. A person who deceives the world to gain fame. A clown like you dares to stir up trouble in my immortal world? You overestimate yourself. Hearing that, Su Yun frowned. He had never seen this woman before, nor did he know her. Why did she speak like this the moment she opened her mouth? Su Yun did not know that the 4 sects were actually pulled over by the sun-worshipping temple. Celestial Master Tianyang was not stupid. He knew that Su Yun was powerful, so he promised great benefits and made the 4 immortal sects come out in full force. He believed that with so many immortals and experts surrounding him, Su Yun was definitely not a match for them. Who are you? Su Yun said indifferently. A frog at the bottom of a well. You don't even know me? The lady's eyes were filled with arrogance. She looked at Su Yun with disdain. Listen up. I am the sect leader of Luo Xia sect, Chao Shifeng. Standing behind me are the ancient beast sects Lord Shouzhen, Vertical Cloud Sword Pavilion's Pavilion Master Lang Duan Tian, Spirit Rhinoceros Peaks Lord Hui Ling, and Celestial Master Tianyang from the Sun-worshipping temple. Her expression was filled with arrogance as she looked at Su Yun. The 5 great sects were extremely powerful. No matter where they were in the immortal world, they were not to be underestimated. In the era of the Immortal Dynasty, although the Immortal Dynasty looked glorious on the surface, there were many people that could not be touched. For example, the 5 sects that had already formed an alliance. Luo Xia sect, Ancient Beast sect, Vertical Cloud Sword Pavilion, Spirit Rhinoceros Peak, Worshipping Sun Worshipping Temple. Su Yun asked suspiciously. Other than the Sun Worshipping Temple, I'm sorry, I've never heard of the rest. You. Chao Shifeng was furious, but she quickly calmed down and smiled coldly. In the end, you are a frog at the bottom of a well, ignorant and inexperienced. I don't blame you for not hearing of us, but you must understand where you are. This is the immortal world, not a place where you can do whatever you want. Do whatever I want. Su Yun did not understand what she was talking about, but Celestial Master Tianyang had already walked out. He looked at Su Yun coldly. His voice was filled with killing intent. Su Yun, you killed my disciple, harmed my disciple. Your crime is unforgivable. Do you know your crime? Know my crime? Whether or not I am in the wrong, is it up to you to judge? Su Yun shook his head. You're still being stubborn. My beloved disciple, Taoist Qi Yin, died in your hands. You must pay with your life, if not, I will flatten your encampment. Celestial Master Tianyang said coldly, his eyes filled with frost. Humph, your disciple coveted my treasure, and even wanted to help the Divine Dragon Clan kill me. Since he made the first move, why should I let him live? Don't tell me you want me to stand in front of him obediently and let him kill me? Shut up. What a load of nonsense. Before Su Yun could say a few words, he was interrupted by Celestial Master Tianyang. No matter what you say, my beloved disciple died in your hands. You can't deny this. Your mouths are on you. You can say whatever you want. Furthermore, I don't think that reasoning is useful in this situation. Su Yun snorted. It's good that you have this awareness. Since that's the case, then do it yourself. Celestial Master Tianyang said solemnly. Do it? At least you caused the immortal court to collapse and removed a calamity from my immortal world. Although the small immortal court is not worth mentioning, you have still contributed to the immortal world. For this, we will allow you to commit suicide. You could die a glorious death. Celestial Master Tianyang said expressionlessly. Only Su Yun and the others knew the hardships of the battle of the immortal court, and the strength of the immortal court was undeniable in the immortal world. In order to bring down the immortal court, Su Yun had paid an unknown price. But in the eyes of these people, it was not even worth mentioning. This was not only an insult to Su Yun, it was also an insult to his companions who died in the battle of the immortal court. Say that again. Su Yun's face suddenly turned sinister. He stared at Celestial Master Tianyang and roared with killing intent. It wasn't just him. The people behind him were also furious. They had painstakingly defeated the immortal court and brought peace to the immortal world, but they were all denied by the person in front of them. How could they not be angry? Seeing the change in Su Yun and the others, Celestial Master Tianyang was shocked, but he quickly calmed down. With 4 experts from the great immortal sect behind him, what was he afraid of? He did not believe that Su Yun would dare to start a war with him. If that happened, it would be a mutual destruction. It seems like Su Yun, you don't plan to commit suicide. Celestial Master Tianyang took a deep breath and said coldly, "Such a reckless trash actually has the face to live. If I were him, I would just die." Chao Shifeng mocked. Trash? Su Yun coldly looked at the people in front of him and said, "During the reign of the immortal court, the tyrannical Ling immortal sect was everywhere, plundering resources. At that time, everyone in the immortal world was in danger. The weak sects were swallowed up one by one, and the strong sects were also exploited and suppressed by the immortal court. At that time, us trash had already started to move, secretly resisting. And you guys? What are you doing? Sucking up to the immortal court, living an ignoble existence. Now, we paid a huge price. Countless of our comrades sacrificed their lives and finally overthrew the immortal court. But you guys, after we fought with the immortal court, suffered great losses and suppressed us, calling us trash. If we're trash, then we're you guys." Su Yun retorted sarcastically, but every word he said hit the nail on the head. His words were like steel needles, piercing their hearts. The disciples of the 5 great immortal sects looked at each other, and many of them lowered their heads in shame. What Su Yun said was true. Although the 5 great immortal sects were a strong force, their leaders were ultimately afraid of the immortal court. Not only did they not resist the tyranny of the immortal court, but they also catered to the immortal court and bullied the other immortal sects together. Chao Shifeng's face was ugly, and she was so angry that her body was trembling. Just as she was about to attack, Celestial Master Tianyang spoke first. "Su Yun, there's no need to change the topic. This time, I'm here to avenge my beloved disciple. If you don't want to die an ugly death, hurry up and commit suicide. We don't have time to waste with you." With that said, Chao Shifeng's eyes were filled with a deep smile. That's right. So what if Su Yun's mouth was sharp? In the face of absolute power, how could he resist? Kill yourself. Don't make things difficult for us. If you still want to protect the immortals behind you, hurry up and do it yourself. We only want you to die. If you don't do this, you will only harm everyone. Noisy voices came out, all directed at Su Yun. This move could not be said to be bad. If Kai Tian and the rest had any ulterior motives towards Su Yun and feared the 5 great immortal sects, they would have long betrayed Su Yun. Celestial Master Tianyang also planned to use this move to divide Su Yun and the immortals behind him. But he did not understand that the relationship between Su Yun and the immortals had long reached a point where it could not be divided, and a few words could not shake their determination. He looked at the people behind him, and seeing their expressions, a trace of relief surfaced in his heart, and then he sneered at Celestial Master Tianyang. "Commit suicide? Do you want to force me, Su Yun, to die? Unfortunately, you don't have the ability. If you want to fight, then hurry up. What's the point of talking nonsense? My time is also very precious. You simply don't know what's good for you." Celestial Master Tianyang was enraged. "Why waste your breath? If you want to fight, I will fight." Su Yun roared. The immortals behind him all stepped forward, as if they were facing death calmly. When the people from the 5 great immortal sects saw this, their faces paled, and many of them could not help but take a step back. In terms of momentum, they had already lost. "You want to fight? I will fight. Fight? And do you have the qualifications?" At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from the horizon. Then ripples appeared in the air, and a thick spatial aura swept over like a tide. The sky darkened, and everyone lost their vision. When the sky brightened, they discovered that a huge carriage had appeared in the middle of the 2 armies of the celestial sects. Chapter 1408. The frame of the chariot was luxurious and resplendent, and dazzling with golden light. Colorful phoenix divine eagles floated on both sides of the chariot, and a divine beast, a Qilin, was pulling the chariot in front. Below it was a huge white cloud. As soon as it appeared, it completely controlled the atmosphere in the area. Everyone felt that the moment it appeared, it had already taken control of the situation. Colorful phoenixes accompany the frame. Qilin, pull the carriage. It's the white-clothed sword god, the ancestor of the white-robed divine hall. The white-robed sword god? Heavens, why is he here? Cries of alarm rang out in all directions. The two armies on both sides were in an uproar. Spiritual Master Tianyang, Chao Shifeng, and the others were shocked, but Shou Gu, Langduan Tian, and Spiritual Reverend Return, who were behind them, regained their senses and hurriedly walked forward, cupped their fists, and said, "Greetings, Lord Sword God." Seeing this, Chao Shifeng and Spiritual Master Tianyang hurriedly cupped their fists in greeting. "I didn't expect God of Swords to come as well. May I know why you have come here?" Spiritual Master Heavenly Sun revealed a smile and respectfully said while standing next to the carriage. The white-robed sword god was a legendary figure. It was said that he had already cultivated the white-robed divine art to the peak of the white-robed divine art. With a flip of his hand, he could overturn the world and control the universe. He was peerlessly powerful, but he had always been hiding in the white-robed divine art. He had given up the position of sect master and never appeared again. As a result, there were rumors everywhere in the immortal world. However, those who knew the white-robed divine art knew that the white-robed sword god had always been hiding in the divine hall, and he had not cultivated the white-robed divine art to the peak. He still had one last move that he had not comprehended. In recent years, he had been painstakingly studying the last move of the white-robed divine art. A cold snort came from the carriage. It was the voice of the white-robed sword god. "My white-robed shrine master has fallen. If I don't come out, will my white-robed shrine be overthrown?" Hearing that, everyone was shocked and turned to look at Su Yun. Spiritual Master Tianyang was well aware of it. He had personally seen Su Yun erase the snow-white clothes. Although he knew that someone from the white-clothed shrine would come, he did not expect that it would be the white-clothed sword god. "Stinking brat, let's see how arrogant you can be this time." Perfected Heavenly Sun sneered in his heart. The atmosphere suddenly became solemn. The person inside the carriage shouted coldly, and a powerful pressure enveloped Su Yun. "Evil creature, hurry up and commit suicide. Do you really want me to do it?" The white-clothed sword god actually wanted Su Yun to commit suicide. Spiritual Master Tianyang and the rest could not force Su Yun, but could it be that the white-clothed sword god could not be forced as well? It was said that this person was an existence that could contend against Grand Immortal Judge. The experts in the immortal world were as numerous as the clouds in the sky. Although the immortal court ruled the immortal world, it didn't mean that the immortal court was invincible. There were many old monsters who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years in the immortal world. They had always ignored worldly affairs and devoted themselves to cultivation. The white-robed sword god was one of them. The chi field was extremely strong. Kai Tian, Faceless, and the rest behind Su Yun could not hold on at all and retreated a few steps, and Su Luluo, who had a weak cultivation, could not possibly appear in front of the battlefield. However, although the aura was astonishing, Su Yun, who had already comprehended the power of the sword, did not move at all. He was as steady as Mount Tai. The person in the carriage released waves of chi. Seeing that Su Yun did not have any reaction, he could not help but exclaim, "It seems like my disciple dying in your hands is not an injustice. This child has some ability." The white-clothed sword god in the carriage thought to himself, but he had not come here today for revenge. Naturally, he had other goals. He needed to force Su Yun and completely crush him. It seemed like he would not be able to suppress this guy just by relying on his aura. The carriage suddenly shook slightly. Following that, the curtain of the carriage was lifted by someone, and a white-haired, white-clothed man walked out. Everyone stared at him with wide eyes. Was this the white-clothed sword god? He was filled with the demeanor of an immortal, especially his concept. It was hard to fathom. After so many years, what kind of terrifying realm had his cultivation reached? His gaze landed on Su Yun's body. His eyes seemed to be two universes, giving off an exquisite illusion. Although your chi is restrained, it cannot hide from my eyes, especially your body. It seems to have not been born for a long time. From this, it can be seen that you are just a newborn calf. Today, I'll let you commit suicide because I do not want to bully the younger generation as an elder. Otherwise, if word gets out, wouldn't my reputation be ruined? But don't push your luck. You don't know what's good for you. Otherwise, your fate will be much more miserable. The white-clothed sword god said indifferently. He stood on the carriage, his condescending words filled with arrogance. Is this all you've got? Su Yun was not afraid at all. Instead, the killing intent in his eyes became denser and denser. He took a step forward and said coldly, I still have the same words as before. If you want to fight, then come. If you don't want to fight, then scram. Scram? So arrogant. Didn't he know the situation he was in? Tianyang's sect master shook his head. You simply don't know what's good for you. Chao Shifeng sneered. Su Yun, don't be too arrogant. Do you really think that no one can control you? Your stubbornness will only send those immortals who are following you to their graves. If you still care about their lives, then quickly commit suicide. Otherwise, you will only implicate more of them. Lang Duantian shouted loudly from behind. Shut up, you have no right to speak to me. Su Yun snorted. Lang Duantian's expression changed, and a sinister glint flashed across his eyes. He then leaped up and landed right in the middle of the two armies. He immediately pulled out a deep blue sword in his hand and pointed it at Su Yun. You dare to humiliate me? I won't kill you today. How can I, Lang Duantian, not be destroyed? Kill me? You're not qualified. Su Yun rushed forward. He did not even pull out his sword. He pointed his finger at Lang Duantian. Whoosh! A terrifying sword chi shot out from his fingertip towards Lang Duantian. His expression changed. He hurriedly waved his sword and released sword chi. Lang Duantian's sword chi was like waves that spread in the air. It was extremely exquisite. In the blink of an eye, his surroundings were filled with sword chi. It was like the sea, forming a domain. Vertical cloud, sea, sword technique. I've long heard that this sword technique is continuous and has a long sword intent. It's an extremely good defensive sword technique. Seeing it today, it truly lives up to its reputation. Sword Master Lang is personally taking care of this arrogant brat. He's dead meat. I heard that this person also uses a sword. I wonder if he can still pull out his sword against Sword Master Lang. Sage Tianyang and Shogu were discussing softly. Looking at Lang Duantian's exquisite sword technique, even the sword god in white could not help but nod. Vertical Cloud Sea sword technique was not weak. Su Yun did not attack. He only continued to accumulate sword chi and dodge the waves of sword chi. Lang Duantian saw that Su Yun dodged left and right, but did not pull out his sword. Anger surfaced on his face. Pull out your sword. Pull out your sword. If you don't, you won't have the chance anymore. In a battle between swordsmen, if the opponent did not pull out his sword, it would be a great humiliation to the opponent. But at this moment, a chill suddenly enveloped Lang Duantian. Lang Duantian was stunned. Su Yun, who was in front of him, kept retreating and defending. It looked like he was at a disadvantage, but his expression was unusually calm. He did not look like he was panting at all. He was not using his full strength at all. Lang Duantian's heart turned cold. But at this moment, Su Yun's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold glint. He raised his hand and pointed, and an unstoppable and terrifying sword chi burst forth from the tip of his finger, tearing apart the wave-like sword chi in front of him. The sword chi instantly pierced through Lang Duantian's chest and accurately smashed onto one of his immortal meridians. Lang Duantian spat out a mouthful of blood and fell straight down. Sage Tianyang and the others were stunned when they saw this. Pull out your sword. Su Yun landed in front of Lang Duantian and stared at him coldly. Do I need to pull out my sword to deal with you? You. Lang Duantian still wanted to get up, but the immortal meridians in his body were broken and his immortal chi was in chaos. He no longer had the strength to fight. But at this moment, he suddenly saw the stubborn, killing intent in Su Yun's eyes. You want to kill me? Yes. You dare? Lang Duantian was in disbelief. Why wouldn't I dare? If you want me dead, do you think I'll let you live? With that, Su Yun raised his hand and a flash of sword chi flew towards Lang Duantian. Bastard! Stop! The white-robed sword god was enraged. He shouted and was about to rush over. But he was still too slow. By the time he rushed over, the sword chi had already pierced through Lang Duantian's forehead, tearing his body and soul into pieces. Lang Duantian dead. The white-robed sword god was enraged when he saw this. He slammed his palm towards Su Yun's head. Su Yun, however, retreated hurriedly to avoid the attack. The white-robed sword god did not chase after him, but his killing intent was extremely strong. The viciousness in his eyes engulfed Su Yun like a storm. He dared to kill someone right in front of him. He was completely looking down on him. Sage Tianyang and the rest were even more shocked. Su Yun killed Lang Duantian just like that. The disciples of the vertical cloud sword pavilion were stunned. It took a long time for them to regain their senses. Looking at the shattered corpse, they were all scared out of their wits. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Sage Tianyang roared. Lang Duantian was an ally that he had invited. Now that he was killed by Su Yun, how was he going to explain this to the vertical cloud sword pavilion? Su Yun, you will die today. Senior sword god, let's give the order to attack. Such an arrogant person must be eliminated. Don't worry. The white-robed sword god snorted. His cold eyes stared at Su Yun. He bellowed, Bastard, you do have some tricks up your sleeve, but don't be too proud. In front of me, this is just a small trick. Now, I'll give you another chance. If you can survive 10 moves from me, you will die. I'll let them retreat. How about that? Su Yun did not say anything. However, the white-robed sword god spoke again. Of course, if you can't take 10 moves, I won't kill you. Otherwise, if word gets out, others will laugh at me, the white-robed sword god, for bullying the younger generation. However, in order to prevent you from causing trouble and harming others, you have to submit to me. With that said, Shogu, Chao Shifeng, and the others frowned. How could they not understand the meaning behind the white-robed sword god's words? This guy was completely after the ominous sword in Su Yun's hands. Chapter 1409. What do you think? The white-clothed sword god said indifferently. What? Nothing much. But who are you talking about when you open your mouth and call me an animal? You guys? A group of sanctimonious people, shouting the excuse of revenge, but they have ulterior motives. Although all of you have strength, you are arrogant, and to think that you guys think that you are a supreme expert, but your magnanimity and vision are so narrow, it is truly laughable. Su Yun shook his head. These words were sharp, causing everyone to be angered. When had the white-clothed sword god ever suffered such humiliation ever since he mastered his cultivation technique? Everyone who saw him would be respectful and submissive. In front of him, even their voices and postures would have to be submissive. However, this fellow in front of him actually dared to speak so rudely. The strong had the attitude and temper of the strong, and the white-clothed sword god's temper was not very good. So, you reject my suggestion? He said coldly. His killing intent was already very obvious. His sharp sword-like gaze seemed to want to pierce through Su Yun. No, I accept. Su Yun said indifferently. It was a simple sentence, but it was like the sound of purification, shocking everyone in the surroundings. The surrounding people were in an uproar. Spiritual Master Tianyang looked at Su Yun in disbelief. The surrounding immortals were even more astonished, thinking that they had heard wrongly. Accepted? Did this guy understand what he was saying? The one he was challenging was the white-clothed sword god, the strongest person in the white-clothed shrine, the true supreme expert of the immortal court, the peak existence of the way of the sword. This time, he will definitely lose. This reckless thing. Does he think that just because he defeated Lang Duantian, he can look down on everyone? Chao Shifeng laughed disdainfully. Ignorant arrogance. In a while, Senior white-clothed sword god will let you know what true power is. In front of Senior, do you think you are worthy of using a sword? Ridiculous. Shogu could not help but speak up. They thought that Su Yun was already a dead man. Since that was the case, they might as well take advantage of the situation, in case this person did not hear them later, and they would have nowhere to vent the anger in their stomachs towards Su Yun. Master, don't be rash. Kai Tian took a few steps forward against the aura of the sword god in white, and said in a low voice. The white-clothed sword god's cultivation was simply out of their reach, and they were also confused about Su Yun's strength. They did not dare guarantee that Su Yun would be able to win. Maybe Su Yun had his own confidence, but confidence did not mean that he would be able to win. If something unexpected happened, how would he deal with it? Don't worry, it's only day. Su Yun said in a low voice. If something really happens to me, all of you can just surrender. Their goal is the evil sword, so they won't do anything to you. My lord, Kai Tian gritted his teeth, not knowing what to say. Have some faith in me. Su Yun exhaled. All right, stop wasting time. The white-clothed sword god seemed to be a little impatient. He frowned, looked at Su Yun, and said indifferently, Since you accepted it, then, you should be prepared. Don't worry, I won't kill you. However, your cultivation will still need to be crippled. You are not suited to practice the sword. I can teach you some other cultivation techniques. Of course, all of this will have to wait until you surrender to me. I'm not suitable to practice the sword? Su Yun's expression congealed. A ruthless light flashed in his eyes. The white-clothed sword god sensed Su Yun's change, snorted, and said, You're not convinced? I've said it before, as long as you can take 10 of my moves, then you win. Then come. Su Yun put his hands behind his back, but he still did not draw his sword. Arrogant. The white-clothed sword god was truly angry. No one had ever dared to ignore his existence like this. With a leap, tens of thousands of afterimages suddenly appeared in the air, as though countless gods had descended. These gods all raised their hands and attacked. The trillions of sword chi scattered, as though 10,000 swords had returned to their origin and were rushing towards Su Yun. The white-clothed sword god was naturally able to easily transform the immortal chi into sword chi. The sharp aura seemed to be able to tear the sky apart. However, Su Yun did not move at all. Facing such a terrifying attack, he did not have any plans to retreat. Did he plan to take it head-on? Everyone's eyes widened. Bang! A circle of golden chi suddenly appeared around Su Yun's body and wrapped around him tightly like a chi cover. The airtight sword chi smashed onto the chi cover, and all of them sank into the ocean, disappearing without a trace. God power? The white-clothed sword god's eyes tensed up. The power of the imperial battle robe could easily deal with any immortal chi, and this move actually allowed Su Yun to replenish a lot of his energy. One move, Su Yun said indifferently. A flash of light flashed past the white-clothed sword god's eyes. Looks like I've underestimated you, but do you think you're the only one who can use god power? He retracted the tens of thousands of shadows, and with one hand, he struck towards Su Yun, and a gigantic golden word sword fell down. The word sword fell into the air, buzzing as though it was shaking the heavens. The surrounding immortals felt their bodies sway violently, and the immortal chi in their bodies started to boil. So strong, just by being slightly affected by the power of the word sword, he felt as if he was going to collapse and be destroyed. Was this the strength of the white-clothed sword god? This was an attack that was completely condensed from divine power. The imperial battle robe could no longer defend against it. Su Yun stared at the word sword and suddenly leaped up. His body was like a rainbow, piercing through. Break! Clang! He was like a sharp sword, slashing apart the word. The second move, there are still 8 more. The crowd cried out. He won't be able to withstand this move. The white-clothed sword god said coldly, and a circle of white sword images suddenly appeared behind him. First move of the white-clothed divine art. Layers of white shadows. So. Countless snow-white sword images rushed out and revolved around Su Yun. Limitless sword arts. Su Yun's body spun, his fingers moving quickly. A large number of chi swords shot out from the void, striking the white sword images. Seeing that, the white-clothed sword god was slightly shocked. You're actually the successor of the sword ancestor. You still have 7 moves. Su Yin said indifferently. The white-clothed sword god was furious and bellowed, "Don't be so arrogant. Even if the sword ancestor was here, he would have to give me some face. You, a mere junior, dare to be so arrogant? Today, I will cripple your cultivation." With that, the white-clothed sword god leaped again, and the white sword image behind him turned into a wheel, disappearing into the clouds. White-clothed divine techniques, second form. Pale heaven and earth. Wah! A sword light fell from the sky, the light radiating in all directions, as if it wanted to illuminate the entire world. No one could open their eyes. The light was too intense, and it was filled with an extremely terrifying attack power. If they did not close their eyes, they would be blinded. Sword shield. Su Yin raised his hand and swung it. The chi swords converged together, layer upon layer, transforming into a gigantic sword shield. The sword light fell down and struck the sword shield, but did not break it. Although this white light had divine power, it was not pure divine power. There was also a lot of immortal chi mixed within it, but Su Yun's techniques were different. The chi swords that he transformed were all condensed from the purest divine power, and their power was extraordinary. How could the white-clothed sword god not know that? His face revealed a cold smile, and he said in a deep voice, "In the end, you are still a newborn calf. You do not have much experience. Although you have divine power, you do not know how to control it. As for me, I am full of energy." With that, he rushed forward again. White-clothed divine techniques, third form. White samsara. The moment the voice fell, the sky returned to its original color. But everyone was surprised to find that everything around them had become extremely slow, and the white-clothed sword god was as relaxed as if he was taking a stroll, not affected in the slightest. He took a step in the air, and although it was only a step, it had the feeling of seeing through life and death, stepping on the concept of reincarnation. He stared intently at Su Yun, his expression unprecedentedly serious. He raised his hand, his fingertip pointing at Su Yun, and on top of his fingertip a white light appeared, as if it was the light of hope, the light of salvation. Inexplicable. This move, how exquisite was it? The million pairs of eyes on both sides stared blankly at this scene. Many people wanted to make a sound, but they discovered that they were unable to make the slightest sound. Even a single movement was extremely difficult. It was the sword domain. The white-clothed sword god's move pulled everyone into his sword domain. He was the ruler of the sword domain. "It's over," Sage Tianyang sneered in his heart. In the end, this child still lost. Is he the disciple of the sword ancestor? Thinking about it, he is still young. To be able to take 3 moves from the white-clothed sword god is enough to be proud of. Now that his cultivation has been crippled, it is truly a pity. Shogu thought, this child's talent is astonishing. Although the white-clothed sword god's cultivation has been crippled, if I were to really teach him again, it is inevitable that he will become an expert in the future. I need to find a chance to get rid of him, lest he becomes a great threat to my sect in the future. Chao Shifeng thought, today's trip was truly not in vain. The white-clothed sword god truly lives up to his name. Venerable Spirit could not help but sigh with emotion at this move. But, just when everyone thought that Su Yun would be defeated by this move, Su Yun, who had been standing in place the entire time, suddenly moved. His body was like a ray of light, suddenly disappearing. The white-clothed sword god's finger shot over, but only hit the air. What? How is this possible? He relied on his aura to break through the sword domain's imprisonment. What's going on? People could not believe what they saw. The white-clothed sword god was also astonished. He focused his gaze and noticed that a hole had actually been torn open in his sword domain, and all the restraints had vanished. It was divine power, an extremely dense divine power. He had forcefully torn apart the sword domain. The reason why he used the immortal chi and divine power was to maintain its power while not using up too much of the divine power. However, the immortal chi was the immortal chi, and the divine power was the divine power. It was an indisputable fact that the divine power was stronger than the immortal chi, and with this restriction, he had mixed a large amount of immortal chi. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to cover such a wide area. If he had only used this move against Su Yun, he could have used the divine power alone, but the vanity in his heart made him increase the range of this move. He wanted to prove his strength to the millions of immortals on both sides, to prove the strength of the white-clothed divine palace. Unexpectedly, this became Su Yun's breakthrough point. He only needed to use the purest divine power to concentrate on one point and forcefully tear it apart. The restriction was broken, and the surroundings were in an uproar. The white-clothed sword god stopped in his original position, looking at Su Yun, who was not far away, his eyes flashing with a cold light. This child, it's better not to subdue him, cut off his body, imprison his soul, and obtain the whereabouts of the evil sword. If he doesn't destroy his body, in time, I'm afraid he will grow to an extremely terrifying level. He thought to himself, it's already been 4 moves, there's still 6 more. Su Yun's voice sounded again. Chapter 14:10. The 4th move? Do you think I will give you another chance? Hearing Su Yun's words, the white-clothed sword god raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, Chance. Su Yun snorted, but did not say anything. But those with discerning eyes could already see it at this time. The white-clothed sword god had used 4 moves, but he did not injure Su Yun in the slightest. This clearly showed that Su Yun was very strong. But the truth was not just that. An even more shocking phenomenon had just been discovered by a few people. That was, Su Yun had not retaliated at all. Furthermore, his aura seemed to be at ease. No counterattack. Su Yun could last 10 moves? But no matter how they looked at it now, it seemed like Su Yun had let the white-clothed sword god have 10 moves. The white-clothed sword god naturally noticed it as well. Although Su Yun had been dodging the entire time, he did not make a move. The so-called letting Su Yun receive 10 moves from him was more like Su Yun giving him 10 moves. He understood that Su Yun's strength was not as simple as he thought. This child was extraordinary. Clang! A snow-white long sword suddenly appeared in the hands of the white-clothed sword god. The long sword was like a rainbow that pierced through the sky. The sword tip trembled slightly, and the sword body seemed to have white snow drifting about. It was like a dream, extremely beautiful, without the slightest bit of sharpness, but it gave off a suffocating feeling. I have already sacrificed my sword. This 5th move is no small matter. The white-clothed sword god said indifferently, his voice cold. This action caused an uproar in the surroundings. Since the white-clothed sword god had already sacrificed his sword, it meant that he had officially started to treat Su Yun. He did not use the white-clothed divine arts move again, but instead rushed towards Su Yun. The sword seemed to be growing on his body, and actually continued to sway. The sword body stirred up a large amount of sword chi ripples. Like ripples, they swept towards Su Yun. It was another sword domain. This time, the white-clothed sword god did not expand the range of the sword domain like before in order to show off his strength. This time, he only targeted Su Yun. The sword domain area continued to spread out at an astonishing speed, and the white-clothed sword god also took the opportunity to stab forward, his speed also astonishing. There was no gorgeous sword skill, no fierce immortal chi. There was only a pure concept. White-clothed sword god was only his title, not his real name, just like sword god Yi Shao. However, how could a person who was given the title of sword god be weak in the way of the sword? At this moment, the move that the white-clothed sword god used was his comprehension of the way of the sword, his understanding of the concept of the sword. I want you to understand why I told you that you weren't suited to practice the sword. At this moment, his voice was filled with immense power. The white-robed sword god lived up to his title of sword god. His sword had already reached the realm of perfection. It was not something an ordinary sword immortal could compare with. Su Yun's speed would definitely not be able to keep up with this sword thrust. Su Yun also understood this logic. The white-clothed sword god's realm was definitely at the peak of the origin void. He was probably only a step away from this realm. How terrifying would his attack be? However, he still chose to retreat. And just as he was retreating, layers of ripples appeared in the air. Following that, many chi points appeared in front of Su Yun and continued to arrange themselves like a galaxy of stars. When the terrifying sword domain reached here, it was actually offset by more than half by this chi point. It was another move that was completely condensed from divine power. To be able to easily block my sword domain, the consumption of his divine power had probably reached an extremely terrifying level. I want to see how long you can hold on for. The white-clothed sword god opened his eyes, and a white light shot out from his pupils. The sword in his hand suddenly changed its stance and started to swing. The will of the world seemed to have gathered within the sword body, and the seemingly calm sword body actually became erratic, like a dream. Die. The terrifying sword intent had already corroded Su Yun's entire body, and the sword domain had also attacked at the same time. What followed was the sword that was filled with a destructive power amidst the calmness. With a series of moves, they sealed off all of Su Yun's blind spots. He had no way out. This time, even if he wanted to escape, he couldn't do it. Everyone's breathing tightened. They didn't even blink as they stared at the situation over there. That dreamlike sword strike made everyone feel as if they were in a dream. Was it over? It was impossible for Su Yun to block this attack. No one present believed that they would be able to withstand this attack from the white-clothed sword god. This was the attack that the white-clothed sword god was most confident in. He believed that after this, Su Yun would definitely not stand in front of him again. The sword was originally a proud existence. When it looked down on the world, it would slash through the heavens and shock the common people. He believed in his own sword, in his own sword skills, and even more in his own way of the sword. There was no mistake, this move. Su Yun would definitely lose. The white-clothed sword god was full of confidence. How could Su Yun not see it? However, although the white-clothed sword god was confident, how could he be disappointed in himself? How could he not believe in his double moon sword? Break! Su Yun's pupils congealed. A terrifying sword intent stared at the sword in the white-clothed sword god's hand. The dreamlike snow-white sword could no longer escape his eyes. At the same time, the double moon sword released a supreme concept, instantly disintegrating the sword domain and fiercely attacking the sword in the white-clothed sword god's hand. What? The white-clothed sword god's mind trembled. How could he not notice such a subtle change? This seemed to be a type of force. Sword force? He wanted to contend against it with his sword force? How strong could his sword force be? Although the white-clothed sword god cultivated the white-clothed divine technique, his understanding of the way of the sword was not something an ordinary immortal could compare to. Even if Su Yun was the successor of the sword ancestor, he was still a young man. What did he have to fear? Although the sword was disrupted by Su Yun, he still held the sword edge tightly, unmoving like a mountain, and thrust it forward. But in that instant, an even more powerful concept that was above Su Yun's unique concept rushed out, and like flowing water, it rushed towards the white-clothed sword god. Clang! A cold light flashed. Su Yun had drawn his sword. Or is it sword force? The white-clothed sword god's mind trembled even more. His brain was almost unable to think. These were two types of sword force. Moreover, they were two different types of sword moves. How is this possible? Could a person who used a sword condense two types of sword force? This was simply unheard of. No, this second one didn't seem to be as simple as the sword force. He felt his aura being suppressed. Not only that, the confidence that was attached to the snow-white longsword was also fiercely impacted. What kind of terrifying impact was this? The white-clothed sword god suddenly understood. Although in terms of cultivation, he was indeed stronger than Su Yun, but in terms of the concept of the sword, there was still a gap between him and Su Yun. The snow-white longsword was no longer calm. It was trembling crazily, as if it was about to fly out of his hand, and the dual moon sword in Su Yun's hand also began to tremble. The frequency was not simple either. The two swords' sword cries collided with each other. It was sharp and ear-piercing, as if it wanted to tear apart the world. The surrounding people all covered their ears in pain, and the weak even fainted. This was the most direct collision between the top swordsmen, the most merciless collision. Su Yun's eyes were filled with madness and stubbornness. The frequency at which his sword was trembling was not any slower than the white-clothed sword god's sword, but his expression was calm. His heart was as still as water. Although his eyes had turned blood-red, he was like a mountain, incomparably stable. The white-clothed sword god stared at the young man in front of him, looking at his eyes, which still revealed an incomparably strong confidence. His heart could not help but thump, feeling that something was wrong. Although this second sword force was abnormally strong, enough to contend against his sword intent, but why was this person still so confident? Does he really think he can defeat me? Or could it be that he still has some trump card? The white-clothed sword god's heart was already in a mess. The hand that was tightly holding onto the sword also loosened a bit. He didn't understand. He didn't understand. Why was this person still able to maintain his calm at this moment? Why was he still so calm? He didn't have the upper hand at all. He should be even more desperate, even more anxious, and even more anxious. Kacha! At this moment, a crisp sound rang out. The white-clothed sword god's body trembled, and suddenly flew out, falling onto the cloud ground not far away, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He opened his eyes wide, raised his hand, and saw that the originally snow-white lustrous sword had already been broken into two. How is this possible? He muttered, dumbstruck. The surroundings were silent, and everyone's breathing tightened at this moment. Your sword is disappointed in you. Su Yun held onto the dual moon sword and slowly walked over. Lose. Disappointed? How is this possible? What nonsense are you spouting? Your confidence comes from the fact that you think that I'm not as good as you, that you are stronger than me, that you will definitely be able to defeat me. However, after I displayed the strength to contend against you, your confidence wavered. The sword should be proud. It should look down on everything. It should break through the heavens and earth. It should shatter the mountains and rivers. But you simply think that you are strong and confident. When you meet an even stronger existence, your confidence will be like powder. So just now, your confidence wavered. You started to not believe in your sword, and the possibility of failure had already surged into your mind. And this determined your failure, because you have already given up, although your sword is not willing to give up, but it is powerless to reverse the situation. So, it has broken. You are not suitable to train in the sword. Su Yun said indifferently, but every word was like a pearl, falling into the hearts of everyone. The white-clothed sword god was stunned. Swords had a spirit. If a sword master did not even believe in his own sword, then what else could he believe? He had given up on his sword. His sword could only self-destruct. The white-clothed sword god was defeated. He was completely defeated. Although his cultivation was strong, in terms of comprehension of the sword Tao, he was actually inferior to a junior. Sword cultivators did not rely on continuous meditation, swallowing pills and meditation to increase their strength, but through continuous combat and communication with the sword to increase their strength. Su Yun and the dual moon sword had gone through countless life and death situations. He trusted his sword, and his sword was willing to fight for him. So, he was confident, even if his opponent was as strong as the heavens. So that's how it is. I really did not expect that this person's cultivation is not high, but his comprehension of the sword Tao is so terrifying. That's right. In terms of aura, he does not lose to the white-clothed sword god at all. For what I see, this white-clothed sword god does not seem to be much. Lower your voice. Don't offend him. Even if you can't compare to this Su Yun, you are not someone we can provoke. The surrounding people began to mutter softly, one by one, pointing at the white-clothed sword god. What kind of person was the white-clothed sword god? The ancestor of the white-clothed temple, who had the title of sword god. How could he endure this? Especially Su Yun's last sentence. You are not suitable to train in the sword. You are not suitable to train in the sword. A dignified sword god. To actually be said by a junior to be unsuitable to train in the sword. This was simply a great shame and humiliation. But he did not know that this sentence was only returned to him by Su Yun. Those who humiliate others, they humiliate themselves. Countless resentment and anger accumulated in the white-clothed sword god's heart. Looking at the man who was standing calmly, a cold, killing intent turned into an impulse in his heart. Su Yun, I will definitely kill you today. Suddenly, the white-clothed sword god growled. With a sinister expression, he directly rushed forward. Chapter 14:11. Despicable. Seeing the white-clothed sword god's actions, Kai Tian and the others couldn't help but curse. It was clearly agreed that as long as my lord can withstand 10 moves from you, it would be considered my lord's victory. I didn't expect you to be so shameless. Is the white-robed sword god someone who goes back on his word? As expected, the White Cloth Shrine is only a third-rate sect. Everyone protect the lord. Kill the white-clothed sword god. Kill! Kai Tian and the rest could not hold it in anymore. The white-clothed sword god was actually so shameless, going against the agreement, and even after the battle ended, he still attacked Su Yun. How could they not be angry? The crowd rushed toward the white-robed sword god in unison, while the immortals in the back also began to charge up their spells. Only Tian, I advise you to quickly stop. Otherwise, blood will flow like a river. Just as Kai Tian and the rest were preparing to support Su Yun and surround the white-clothed sword god, spiritual master Tian Yang led his disciples and rushed over. Shou Zhen, revered spirit returning, and Chao Shifeng also stepped forward, leading their disciples to press forward. Even the people from Lang Duantian's vertical cloud sword pavilion had squeezed over. Lang Duantian had died in Su Yun's hands. They had lost their sect leader, but they were not in a hurry to leave. Naturally, they were waiting for an opportunity to strike. Under the leadership of the elders, they decided to continue following sage Tian Yang to avenge Lang Duantian. They had come here today because of spiritual master Tian Yang's invitation to eliminate Su Yun and snatch the ominous sword. Although the white-clothed sword god was unable to defeat Su Yun in 10 moves, it might just be because of carelessness. If they could get rid of Su Yun, it might not be a bad thing for them. The white-clothed sword god's overall strength was definitely stronger than Su Yun's. As long as he could stall for time, Su Yun would definitely die. With Su Yun's death, not only would they be able to obtain the ominous sword, wouldn't all the resources in the encampment be theirs? The immortal court no longer existed, so there were no more rules and regulations. They didn't have to worry about anything anymore. Kai Tian's expression froze when he saw this. Although the number of people on his side was not fewer than the disciples of the 4 great immortal sects in a previous fierce battle with the divine dragon race, many of them had yet to recover from their injuries. If they were to really fight, it would definitely be a fierce battle, and they would not have the upper hand. But now, Su Yun was being forced by the white-clothed sword god. Could they still remain indifferent? You've gone too far. The white-robed sword god did not stop. We don't care about rivers of blood. Kai Tian roared. His life was given to him by Xiang Yang, and Su Yun had avenged Xiang Yang, so he only trusted Su Yun. Kill! The immortals behind him roared, their killing intent filling the air. Sage Heavenly Sun and the others paled. They didn't expect these people to be so reckless. If they really fought, they couldn't bear to do so. After all, these were all disciples of the sect. If they fought to the death, it would be a huge consumption. Even if they won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. What are you afraid of? If we kill these people, the treasures in the encampment will naturally be divided among us. With these treasures, it will be more than enough to replenish the sect's consumption. I'm afraid that it will also allow the sect to advance a lot. At this moment, Chao Shifeng smiled lightly and said, Well said. This was just a motley crew. What was there to be afraid of? Since they're courting death, we'll grant their wish. All right. Hearing that Shou Zhen, spirit returning sage, and Chao Shifeng had done so, celestial master Tian Yang no longer cared about anything else. He heard a low roar. Celestial master Tian Yang raised his hand and shouted, Everyone get ready. Crash. The people of the 5 sects all activated their spells and gathered immortal chi. It seemed that a battle was about to begin. Kai Tian's eyes narrowed, and he raised a war flag. Kai Tian, I'll give you one last chance. If you surrender to us now, We can guarantee that we won't hurt you in the slightest. We won't mistreat you either. You'll definitely be treated 1,000 times better than you are now." Celestial Master Tian Yang seemed unwilling to give up. He shouted again, trying to rope Kai Tian in. However, only a cold spell responded to him. "Cut the crap. If we're going to fight, then what's the point of being so wishy-washy? Let's just fight. We'll kill them until they're dead." Kai Tian roared angrily. Countless immortals of the allied army were stirred up by his words. That's right. Why waste your breath? If they were going to fight, then they could just raise their swords and kill. Kai Tian wasn't afraid of these immortals at all. He was the first to charge forward, his target Celestial Master Tian Yang. Kill! Kill! The allied army moved as well. Like a torrential waterfall, they rushed toward the people of the 5 sections. Seeing how fearless Kai Tian was, Celestial Master Tian Yang suddenly felt a little regretful. These fellows' killing intent was very heavy. It was impossible to subdue them with just deterrence. The only thing that could calm this battle was probably a massacre. Forget it. Forget it. Since you're so stubborn, then don't blame us. Celestial Master Tian Yang sighed. He waved his hand and shouted, "Kill! Kill! Don't leave a single one alive. Kill them all." Chao Shifeng shouted. A few disciples of the immortal sects also moved. Millions of immortals from both sides gathered together. Messy immortal techniques and strange immortal weapons interweaved together, causing the scene to be extremely chaotic. On Su Yun's side, he was also caught in a fierce battle. The white-clothed sword god did not hold back at all. Bringing with him a dense killing intent, he crazily attacked Su Yun, with one hand forming a finger, a wisp of sword chi using his fingertip as a sword hilt, condensing into a slender sword body, slashing toward Su Yun. Every one of his sword strikes had already abandoned the magnificence from before, the illusion and profoundness from before. At this moment, they were all filled with hatred and anger as they attacked Su Yun. Ever since he had stepped onto the path of cultivation for so many years, the white-clothed sword god had never suffered such humiliation and defeat. He was originally born in the mortal realm as a disciple of an aristocratic family, and since he was young, he had outstanding talent and was also the target of his family's nurturing. In less than 200 years, he had stepped into the ultimate martial world and entered the famous sword cultivation sect in the ultimate martial world. His talent still won him a large amount of cultivation resources, so in 1,000 years, he successfully cultivated and was also the youngest person to enter the immortal realm in that sword sect. After entering the immortal world, he entered the white-clothed divine palace, abandoned all distracting thoughts, and continued to cultivate. Even if the sword sect in the ultimate martial world was destroyed by his enemies, and his fellow sect members sought help, he was indifferent and continued to cultivate. He believed that he would become the #1 person in the myriad realms, and he was also constantly running in this direction. Of all the stunning geniuses he had met on the long road of cultivation, which one of them could be more dazzling than him, and which power had the guts to provoke him? But today, all of this had been overturned. Not only had this nameless junior challenged him, but he had also completely trampled on his pride and dignity, crushing it into pieces. He could not tolerate it. He had to kill this person. Otherwise, his perfect life would definitely be stained. How could a white robe tolerate flaws? I want you dead. The sword of purification. The white-clothed sword god roared. The sword flow flickered, sealing Su Yun's front and back. The terrifying sword intent was like a demon's claw, tearing towards Su Yun's body. God power! Su Yun bellowed. He released his god power, weakening the destruction of this move. At the same time, he turned around. The dual moon sword trembled, releasing thousands of sword chi. His eyes were blood red, but his expression was abnormally calm. The malevolence in the depths of his eyes did not match his current expression, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not hide his killing intent. If you want me to die, then don't blame me for being impolite. Su Yun formed a seal with one hand, activating the limitless sword arts once again. Tens of thousands of chi swords rushed out from the void. Their auras were like rainbows, astonishing beyond compare. The white-clothed sword god's cultivation was indeed stronger than Su Yun's at the peak of the Origin Void. Although Su Yun was also at the high level of the Origin Void, he was still a few steps away from the peak. Furthermore, the cultivation technique that the white-clothed sword god grasped was a high-level cultivation technique, and a magic treasure that he used was something that the white-clothed divine palace had painstakingly collected over the years and offered to him. On this point, Su Yun admitted that he was indeed inferior to him. However, the white-clothed sword god had a fatal flaw, which was where he was inferior to Su Yun, and this point was extremely crucial. That was actual combat. All these years, Su Yun had walked on the edge of life and death, comprehending the way of the sword in actual combat, while the white-clothed sword god only relied on meditation, cultivation techniques, pills, and immortal coins to forcefully increase his own strength. He rarely interfered in the matters of the sect, and regardless of whether it was the main family of the mortal realm or the ultimate martial world sects and sword sects, he held an indifferent attitude towards all of them. He was used to being high and mighty and longed to continue maintaining this kind of high and mighty attitude. So he continued to cultivate, hoping that his strength would continue to rise. This time, the death of Shui by Yi did not actually make him extremely angry. The main reason why he came here was because of the fierce sword in Su Yun's hand. The person who obtained the fierce sword could easily dominate the 10,000 worlds. This was the key to obtaining everything. He needed this key, so he stood here. However, even if his cultivation was strong, it did not represent his strength. Su Yun's realm of the sword had already completely suppressed him. The Qi sword continued to revolve, attacking the white-clothed sword god like a spirit. His concept was actually like scattered sand and began to collapse. A real sword is not used like this, Su Yun said coldly. His voice was like a steel needle, piercing into his heart. The white-robed sword god's forehead was covered in sweat. He let out a low roar and wanted to explode with all of his aura to force away the surrounding energy swords and take back the initiative. Sword might. Just then, a loud shout erupted from Su Yun's mouth. The sword aura around him actually began to move, and then automatically separated, turning into a higher level of sword essence, completely shattering the sword aura of the sword god in white. This is impossible. What is this? The white-clothed sword god could not accept everything that had happened. His sword force was actually unable to suppress Su Yun. Cultivation could be fake. I told you, you're not suited for sword training. Su Yun raised his sword and leaped like a god. He descended in front of the white-clothed sword god. Ah! The white-clothed sword god had gone completely crazy. He no longer fought with Su Yun's sword force, but instead congealed the sword chi and danced quickly. The sword chi was brandished by him, causing the air to tremble and ripple. The destructive power within the sword chi seemed to want to turn the world into an apocalypse. Su Yun quickly dodged. The dual moon sword continued to clash with the chi sword, releasing deafening explosions. However, he did not seem to be struggling. The cold blade was extremely cunning. The person in front of him was already in a state of chaos. Defeat was only a matter of time. Suddenly, a cold light flashed past Su Yun's eyes. Chance! He secretly snorted, the dual moon sword directly thrusting forward, the sword tip transforming into a silver river, accurately piercing into the white-clothed sword god's chest. In that moment, the divine power that was covering the sword body was like an electric current, entering the white-clothed sword god's entire body. The white-clothed sword god trembled violently a few times. His white robe was torn apart, and his skin returned. The surrounding sword chi was like a collapsing mountain, instantly disappearing without a trace. As for him, he was like a statue, standing there motionlessly. A moment later, he spat out another mouthful of blood, his eyes wide open as he looked at Su Yun. He had lost. He had been completely defeated. Su Yun retracted his sword with one hand and quietly looked at the white-clothed sword god. With his immortal meridian broken, the white-clothed sword god no longer had any leeway to retaliate. Although you're not worthy of using a sword for the sake of that self-destructing sword, I will give you a chance. Kill yourself, Su Yun said indifferently. Chapter 14:12. Are you going to commit suicide? Furthermore, it was for the sake of the broken sword from before. Su Yun did not look at his title of sword god, did not look at his void returning realm strength, and did not even look at his identity as the patriarch of the white-clothed divine palace. He only looked at his sword, that sword that would rather break than bend. Was this what it meant to be inferior to a sword? The white-clothed god of swords widened his eyes as he looked at the person in front of him. His gaze was still deep, calm, and without the slightest ripple. Previously, he had relied on his powerful strength to suppress Su Yun and wanted him to commit suicide. But now, Su Yun had returned those words to him. What kind of irony was this? Desolation surfaced in the eyes of the white-clothed god of swords. At this moment, he realized how laughable he was. His entire life had been so empty. For the sake of this so-called power, how much had he given up, and how much had he missed? In the end, was the power he obtained true power? Furthermore, just how many precious things had he given up on this journey? He sighed. At this point, there was no other way out. Even if he did not commit suicide, he would only be humiliating himself. Suddenly, many things flashed through his mind, especially the sword that had self-destructed during his battle with Su Yun. That was the sword that his master, who had taught him the immortal sword arts, had given him after he entered the immortal world. It was also the sword that had accompanied him the longest. If a swordsman was disappointed in him, then what was the value of his existence? Poochie. A light sound came out from beside Su Yun's ear. Immediately after, a body exploded like fireworks, and no soul remained. Sword God, by he had fallen. What? Seeing that Su Yun had actually wiped out the white-clothed sword god, the surrounding people were all shocked. They could not imagine how strong Su Yun was that even the white-clothed sword god could not subdue him. Seeing that, Kai Tian and the others were extremely excited. They all roared out in excitement. The originally difficult battle had actually relied on this weak aura to gradually turn the tables. Damn it! Sage Tianyang was furious and shouted loudly, "Don't retreat, kill them. They're just a bunch of mobs, don't be afraid. They can't beat us. A bunch of trash. What's there to be afraid of? Are you going to retreat without a fight? Kill." Chao Shifeng roared angrily and charged into a group of immortals from the allied army. She swung a blood-red whip in her hand, and hundreds of immortals around her were whipped into pieces, dying miserably without even a chance to scream. Seeing this, Kai Tian's eyes turned red, and he charged at Chao Shifeng like a madman. The majority of the disciples killed by this whip were from the 8 Unity School. Many of them had followed him for many years, yet they were killed by Chao Shifeng like this. How could he not be angry? You overestimate yourself. Chao Shifeng did not place Kai Tian in his eyes at all. Previously, Kai Tian had been fighting with spiritual master Heavenly Sun and had consumed a lot of his strength. Now that he had rushed over, he was only relying on a single breath. The two of them exchanged a few moves, and Kai Tian was indeed no match for her. He was struck in the chest by Chao Shifeng's whip and was sent flying. He vomited blood, and his flesh was lacerated, exposing his internal organs. If it wasn't for the fact that his physical body was much stronger than an ordinary disciple's, this whip would have taken his life. Is that all you've got? Trash. Chao Shifeng sneered. Is that so? Just then, a low roar filled with killing intent came from his side. Following that, a sword might attacked, causing everyone's heart to palpitate. Chao Shifeng's heart turned cold. She looked to the side, but just then, a sharp sword suddenly pierced over. She was caught unprepared. The opponent's speed was too fast. She anxiously swung her whip to block, but the powerful sword might still send her flying. Chao Shifeng fell to the ground. She was in a sorry state. She anxiously stood up, but before she could regain her senses, a sharp sword pierced through her body, cutting off her immortal meridian. Su Yun. It was Su Yun. Even the white-clothed sword god had died in his hands. How could Chao Shifeng contend against him? Is that all you got? Trash. Su Yun said coldly, returning the words back to her. The killing intent was unmistakable. causing Chao Shifeng's entire body to tremble violently. She could feel it, and her lips trembled uncontrollably. He definitely could not stop Su Yun, and the only thing he could do now was to retreat. However, the terrifying sword chi was like a magnet, directly sticking to her body, making it impossible for her to escape. Don't kill me. Su Yun, don't kill me. Do you think it's possible that I won't kill you? Su Yun snorted. He swung his arm and pulled the twin moon sword, releasing a full amount of divine power from the sword, tearing Chao Shifeng's body and soul apart, turning them into pieces that flew in all directions. When the surrounding immortals saw such a brutal scene, they all retreated in fear. How could they dare to make an enemy out of him? If no one could deal with Su Yun, then this battle would definitely be controlled by him. Su Yun, don't be too arrogant. Have a taste of my Heaven Sun Divine Cauldron's power. Sage Tianyang roared and took out a huge cauldron. The cauldron was the size of a small mountain and was bronze in color. There were several Qilin marks on the cauldron, and just by looking at it, one could tell that it was an extraordinary item. Good cauldron. However, I'll take it. Su Yun bellowed. He suddenly extended his hand forward and grabbed. Sage Tianyang's eyes congealed. He thought that Su Yun was reckless and wanted to grab the divine cauldron, but he felt a pain in his neck and realized that he was not grabbing the cauldron, but himself. The two of them were separated by hundreds of miles, but they were forcefully dragged over. Before Sage Tianyang could react, the arm that was controlling the cauldron was cut off by the sword. Ah! A miserable scream resounded through the sky. The cauldron was forcefully broken apart and fell from the sky. But before it could land, another burst of spatial energy caused the cauldron to disappear. Too strong. Just by relying on Tianyang's sect master's cultivation, he could not do anything to Su Yun. Spiritual Master Heavenly Sun wanted to retreat, but the sword aura had forced him into a dead end. The terrifying sword aura was destroying his last bit of psychological defense, and he was on the verge of collapse. That pair of blood-red eyes caused one's hair to stand on end. Su Yun, I didn't mean to go against you. If you let me go, I could do anything for you. I'm willing to bring everyone in the sun-worshipping temple to join you. As long as you don't kill me, I'm willing to do anything. Spiritual Master Heavenly Sun finally understood the disparity in strength between them, and finally felt the fear of death. But wasn't it too late to say that now? From a moment you decided to kill me, there is no longer any reconciliation between us. I will kill whoever kills me. Su Yun snorted. The twin moon swords slashed down. No, Pucci. A crisp sound rang out. Spiritual Master Heavenly Sun's body was directly cut in half. Immortal chi overflowed and his organs scattered. The scene was extremely bloody. These people from the void were like pigs and dogs in front of him, wantonly slaughtering them. When Shou Zhen and Reverend Spirit saw the two of them being slaughtered, their faces turned pale and they trembled. Let's go. There's still a long way to go. Let's go back first and think of a way to invite the supreme expert. Then we'll settle the score with Su Yun. Shou Zhen said to Reverend Spirit, who was not far away. All right. Reverend Spirit nodded, then shouted, Retreat, retreat, retreat. Shouts rang out everywhere as the people from the 5 immortal sects began to retreat. The scene became more and more chaotic. Kill. Leave no one alive. Su Yun's cold voice came out. He took out the huge flowing feather mysterious fan and waved it at the place where the people from the 5 immortal sects were gathered. The terrifying wind directly tore the bodies of the immortals apart. Wherever the fan waved, nothing would be left behind. It was extremely terrifying. In this situation, the flowing feather mysterious fan was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. With a swing, hundreds and thousands of people died. The situation had already begun to tilt to one side, but Su Yun did not show any mercy. He frantically chased after them, and more immortals were killed by the soldiers. Howl! At this moment, a howling sound rang out. A huge black cloud floated over from afar, covering the sky. Endless devil chi rippled over. When Kai Tian, who was being supported by a few disciples, saw this scene, he exhaled and said with a bitter smile, These guys are really slow. What's going on? Why is there such a dense devil chi? Shou Jun and Reverend Spirit, who were fleeing with their people, were alarmed. Looking at the darkness in the distance, an ominous feeling welled up in their hearts. Not long after, the two of them stopped. The immortals following behind them also stopped. They all widened their eyes as they looked at the scene in front of them. In the pitch-black clouds in front of them, many pitch-black figures appeared. They were devil cultivator soldiers with blood-red eyes and dressed in black armor. They held on to long spears and long blades and flew over, covering the sky and covering the sun. On their right were countless nether beasts. They were creatures from the nether realm. In the middle of the nether beasts was a beautiful and refined woman dressed in a gray robe. The woman's eyes were golden in color and had a bewitching power that could captivate one's mind. It was extremely terrifying. After the people from the two realms appeared, they completely sealed off the path of retreat for Shou Jun and Reverend Spirit. They also completely sealed off the people from the 5 great immortal sections. They had no way out. There are rumors that Su Yun is the true Devil Realm's demon lord and has subdued the Nether Realm. From the looks of it, these two powers also belong to him. Venerable Spirit muttered, "Have we lost?" Shou Jun seemed to be unable to accept this reality. Defeated. It's a complete defeat. Reverend Spirit returned, slowly closed his eyes. The white-clothed sword god and the elite forces of the 5 immortal sects were actually unable to eat a nameless nobody they had never heard of before. This was something they had never expected. It was not an injustice for the great immortal sect to die in his hands. Whoosh! At this moment, a terrifying gust of wind suddenly blew in the sky. Immediately after, space trembled, and a golden light shot over from afar, illuminating the pitch-black darkness. Roar! It was a dragon's roar. A deafening dragon's roar. Bastard, why aren't you stopping? Do you really want to taste the feeling of being beaten back to your original form? What followed was a deep and resounding voice that sounded like a great bell. Chapter 14:13. Su Yin looked over, only to see a large number of divine dragons flying over from afar. The gigantic dragon bodies that were thousands of zhong long and tens of thousands of zhong long covered the entire sky. Their imposing auras were unforgettable. Draconic might swept through the entire battlefield like a tidal wave. Even the Nether Demon Coalition army's Nether Demon Chi couldn't resist it. It's the divine dragon race. It was the patriarch, the supreme experts of the divine dragon race. The spiritual reverend and Shou Jun seemed to have seen a glimmer of hope for survival, and they cried out in excitement. As the divine dragons approached, thousands of divine dragons released their dragon might at the same time. The pressure was especially strong, and the immortals of the allied army retreated frantically, using their immortal chi to resist, but all of their faces were pale, and their bodies trembled. Shou Jun, Venerable Spirit returning, and the rest were not feeling well either. They were already covered in wounds for being chased by Su Yun, and were in a terrible state. The dragons might have had no effect on them, causing their bodies to sway, and in their helplessness, they could only use their chi to resist. However, with the arrival of the dragon god, the situation changed again. With the powerful strength of the dragon clan here, no matter how talented Su Yun was, he would not dare to act recklessly. Su Yun looked towards the source of the roar, only to see a gigantic dragon with 12 dragon horns flying over. This divine dragon's body was incomparably huge and terrifying. He was actually tens of thousands of zhong long, and those tens of thousands of zhong long divine dragons were like toys beside him. What was even more terrifying was his aura. He was the first to charge forward, and his aura alone completely suppressed the aura of millions of immortals. So powerful, with just one person, he was able to contend against millions of people with ease. The white-robed sword god and the azure dragon elder were not even worth mentioning in front of this divine dragon. This divine dragon was at least at the level of the great celestial lord, and it was definitely close. Even if it was weaker than the great celestial lord, it wouldn't be by much. If it really fought with the great celestial lord, it was hard to tell who would win. This was a kind of power that could shake one's soul. There was no need to display too much. Just by appearing in front of them, it could give them such a feeling. The immortals in the surroundings gave way, not daring to get close to the huge dragon. No one present dared to make sound. This was the attitude of the strong. However, even if he was strong, he could be strong. Su Yin still leaped out and landed at the front of the crowd. Su Yin is you. The gigantic divine dragon looked down at Su Yin from above, full of arrogance. Who are you? Su Yin said indifferently. How dare you? You have eyes but can't see, a frog at the bottom of a well. This is the clan leader of my divine dragon clan. A divine dragon came over from the side and roared at Su Yin. Divine dragon race? Su Yin secretly snorted, but there was not a trace of fear on his face. You guys seem to have come too late. You calculated my return? The divine dragon race leader frowned. Of course, your great elder died in my hands. How could you not come? It's naturally for the best that you have such an awareness. Since you know that you have offended our divine dragon race, then you should give us an explanation. The divine dragon race said indifferently. Now, cripple your own cultivation and surrender to me. If that's the case, I'll spare your life, and I'll let these 1,000,000 immortals go. In that case, should I be grateful to you? Su Yin laughed. The divine dragon lord frowned. He could feel the ridicule in Su Yin's words. Su Yin snorted coldly. Why do you have to be so dignified? Offend your divine dragon race? I did not provoke your divine dragon race at all, but you came to provoke me first. Not only did you threaten me with your words, you even killed my people. Lord Xiangyang of my allied forces died in your hands, and I have yet to settle this grudge with you. Yet you came to me to denounce me? How laughable! Bastard, how dare you speak to me like that? The divine dragon race leader shouted, venting his anger. Is this the way your divine dragon race does things? If there was a disagreement, he would use force to settle it? How tyrannical! However, you don't have to hide it anymore. How could I not know what you're thinking? You want me to surrender? Ridiculous. In the end, you guys are still here for the evil sword, right? Su Yin sneered. He had pierced through the last layer of window paper, causing everyone to feel a little awkward. The divine dragon race's dignified dragon eyes stared at Su Yin. The dragon's might became even stronger, as though it wanted to completely crush all the immortals to death. Su Yin secretly snorted, but did not take half a step back. He straightened his back, his body was straight, and did not look like he was bending at all. Humph! How laughable! A mere ant dares to be impudent in front of me. I see that you are a good seedling, and it has not been easy for you to cultivate to this point. I will spare your life, but you do not know what's good for you, and recklessly speculate about the will of the heavens. It seems like I don't need to be polite anymore. I'll wipe you out. Your soul will be imprisoned as your punishment. With that said, the divine dragon race actually twisted his body and pounced toward Su Yin. Expert. In their eyes, there was no need to waste words with a person who was about to die. Using the fastest and most powerful method to erase him was the most powerful word for an expert. Roar. A deafening roar spread out. The heaven and earth-tearing roar was definitely not something that the dragon roar that Su Yin had heard before could compare to. The immortals around Su Yin all exploded and died, unable to withstand the terrifying roar. Even Shou Zhen and Venerable Spirit returning who were not far away spat out blood and fell to the ground, unable to get up. The immortals fled frantically. How could they withstand the might of the divine dragon race? But Su Yin stood in place, unmoving like the wind. His entire body was already covered in divine power. The dragon's roar was immortal qi. Although it was shockingly powerful, it was still difficult to break through the divine power. It was just that this roar had consumed a lot of Su Yin's divine power. After fighting for so long, he had consumed a lot of energy, but the divine dragon race was waiting for him. If he was at his peak condition, he would not be afraid of fighting with the divine dragon race. But now, although he could fight, the outcome was hard to predict. The dragon's roar was unable to push Su Yin back, causing the divine dragon race to fly into a rage out of humiliation. His body was huge, and when the dragon claw descended, It was as if half the sky had collapsed. It was extremely terrifying. The remaining few thousand divine dragons did not move. Since the divine dragon race had personally made a move, they only needed to watch from the side. If they attacked together, wouldn't it be a loss of face for the divine dragon race? Dong! The dragon clawed down. Su Yun used one hand to activate the chi, and a chi cover appeared above his head, blocking the descending dragon claw. Brute force and divine power went up together. The dragon claw could not descend, and Su Yun could not open it either. The two of them were in a stalemate. The divine dragon race was slightly shocked. He never thought that Su Yun would actually be able to receive his attack. But he had 8 claws. How could Su Yun block? Rumble, rumble, rumble 3 more claws attacked, and the terrifying claws tore through the void. The situation was extremely bad. The divine dragon race had boundless strength that could split the heavens and earth. He soared into the sky and stirred up the winds and clouds for thousands of miles. Su Yun did not dare be careless. With a low roar, his entire body suddenly spewed out a dense cloud. The divine dragon race frowned. He suddenly sensed a different aura leaking out from the clouds. This is... how? A strange sound came from the clouds, followed by a wave of pain from the claw. The divine dragon race was shocked. He immediately retracted the sharp claw, but after retracting it, he saw that the sharp claw was no longer there. It had been bitten off, and dragon blood kept flowing out. What? The dragons were shocked. The clouds dissipated, and a huge figure appeared in their line of sight. The body of a goat, the face of a human, the eyes under the armpit, the teeth of a tiger, the claws of a human, and the mouth was like a black hole. Tao. The divine dragon race was incomparably shocked. Could it be that your original form is Tao Tai? But very quickly, he realized that something was amiss. This seemed to be just a transformation of the soul, obtaining the origin power and not the original body. Humph! So it's a guy who obtained some luck in the soul of an ancient vicious beast. However, do you think you can defeat me with this? If it was the real Tao Tai, I would still be a bit afraid. But this thing is just a fake. Killing it is as easy as flipping my hand. Die! The divine dragon race twisted his body again, only to see a ray of golden light shoot out from his broken claw. Following that, a golden sharp claw condensed at the broken part. His imposing manner was generous. He pounced straight at Su Yun, his terrifying dragon body curled up, his huge tail fiercely smashing towards Tao Tai's huge body. Tao Tai opened his mouth, wanting to bite it, but at the same time, the divine dragon race opened his mouth and spat out a colored ball, smashing onto Tao Tai's body. That colored ball was actually filled with the power of the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. A large hole was blasted open in Tao Tai's chest. It was terrifying. What kind of terrifying power was this? The strength of Tao Tai's body was obvious to all, but facing the divine dragon race, it was so weak. Useless trash. Go to hell. The divine dragon race's huge dragon body rushed down. Its speed was so fast that it left people speechless. The 4 dragon claws in front of it were like the sharpest swords in the world, tearing towards Tao Tai's body. The divine power released from Tao Tai's body was like paper. It scattered upon contact. It's over. Facing the patriarch, he will definitely lose. What an unlucky brat. Since you have provoked our divine dragon race, you must be prepared to die, the group of dragons said. In their eyes, Su Yun's defeat was a matter of course. Bang! Just then, Tao Tai, who had fallen to the ground, suddenly exploded into a ball of cloud mist, causing the divine dragon race's dragon claw to miss. Did he return to his original form? Everyone thought. However, at this moment, an even more terrifying dragon roar came from within the clouds. Roar. This dragon roar was not as resounding as the divine dragon races, but rather, it was hoarse and low, like a thunderclap falling into a pile of rocks. Although it was not loud, it had a kind of tension that could shake one's soul. Amongst the group of dragons, many people's expressions changed when they heard this dragon roar. The head of the divine dragon race stopped in his tracks and stared at the clouds with his mouth agape. Whiz. A swift and enormous dragon shadow rushed out from the clouds and directly wrapped around the divine dragon race's enormous body. Everyone looked over and finally saw the dragon shadow clearly. Its body was tens of thousands of feet long, and its entire body was covered in grayish-black scales. Many of them had even fallen off, making it look extremely miserable. However, what was even more shocking was its dragon horns. It was broken. Traitorous dragon. A shocked roar rang out. Chapter 14:14. This is the dragon soul of the traitorous dragon. The divine dragon lord was shocked. However, he did not have the time to think too much about it. The gigantic and mournful dragon soul seemed to have gone mad as it frantically exerted its strength and tightly wrapped around his body. The dragon teeth also started to tear at the divine dragon lord's body. Dragon blood and dragon meat splashed everywhere in the traitorous dragon's ferocious mouth. "I will make you die." The divine dragon lord was in unbearable pain and felt that he had lost all face. The traitorous dragon was the shame of the divine dragon race. And now, he was being humiliated by this disgraceful person. How could he endure it? Dragon Elephant World. A roar came out. The divine dragon lord's huge body turned into a green light, shuttling in front, leaving behind a dragon's might in the air. The traitorous dragon also missed, and when it appeared again, the divine dragon lord was already 10,000 miles away. He opened his mouth wide and exhaled once more, causing a gust of wind to blow. The traitorous dragon moved, dodging the gust of wind, and also let out a furious roar. The divine power was attached to the sound wave, and it smashed towards the divine dragon lord. Dragon splitting heaven and earth. The divine dragon lord chanted an incantation, and strange words came out from his mouth, passing in all directions. Following that, for golden words appeared around the traitorous dragon's body. Qian, Kuan, Wan, Fa. When the large words appeared, the encirclement started to spin crazily. Those who touched the large words would be repelled, and the traitorous dragon seemed to be trapped. Chance! The divine dragon lord snorted, and with another dragon elephant world, he instantly landed beside the traitorous dragon, and with his 4 claws, he tore at the traitorous dragon. The 4 large words suddenly shrank, clamping onto the traitorous dragon's body, and the sharp claws followed. But in that moment of life and death, the traitorous dragon somehow found the strength to break free from the 10,000 word. It opened its mouth, and without the slightest bit of fear, it directly pulled at the front of the claw. "You're simply courting death." The divine dragon lord's eyes flashed with a cold light. Su Yun's actions were simply to destroy jade and stone together. Pucci, the divine dragon lord's dragon claw, was bitten off again. However, at the same time, the traitorous dragon's body was grabbed by a large number of sharp claws. Then, with a pull, his skin and flesh were torn open. It was a miserable scene, and he was seriously injured. "It's over." The divine dragon lord wanted to inject the dragon chi into the dragon claw and directly shatter the traitorous dragon's body, imprisoning Su Yun's soul and the traitorous dragon's dragon soul. But at that moment, his huge body suddenly trembled a few times, and then he spat out a large amount of dragon blood. His huge body swayed a few times, and he actually couldn't use any strength. The traitorous dragon seized the opportunity and pounced forward. It opened its sharp dragon teeth and bit towards the neck of the divine dragon patriarch. Roar! The divine dragon race leader let out a miserable cry. At that moment, not only was his neck bitten by the traitorous dragon, but a strange sword aura was also rampaging through his body. It turned out that when the traitorous dragon bit off his dragon claw, it injected a strand of sword chi into the wound. How profound must one's understanding of sword Dao and sword chi be in order to have such a method? The divine dragon race did not expect this at all. The dragon's roar shook the heavens and earth. With the sword chi wreaking havoc in his body, the divine dragon race was unable to retaliate at all. His neck was being grabbed, and if this continued, his head would be torn off by the traitorous dragon. The traitorous dragon did not show any signs of stopping. His dragon teeth were like blades and swords, and had already torn open many sinister wounds. Dragon blood spurted out like a fountain. Stop! The group of dragons rushed over and attacked the traitorous dragon without any hesitation. The traitorous dragon had no choice but to retreat. The divine dragon race was temporarily safe. He anxiously landed on the ground and transformed into his human form. He quickly sat cross-legged and recovered, dispersing the strange, sword chi in his body. Suyin was not feeling well either. After transforming into his human form, his body was filled with broken parts. It was extremely terrifying. He retreated a few steps and almost fell to the ground, spitting out a lot of blood. Kai Tian rushed over and handed over the pill. Suyin consumed it and sat down cross-legged to recuperate. Both sides fell into a short silence, but very quickly, the divine dragon race broke the silence. Despicable! A cold snort came out from the divine dragon race's mouth. Despicable! Hearing that, Suyin was startled, then laughed out loud. I really never thought that the dignified divine dragon race would not only be unreasonable and domineering, you would also be so shameless and speak nonsense with your eyes wide open. This is truly the biggest joke in the world. Ha ha ha. The divine dragon race naturally knew what he was talking about. His face changed slightly as he snorted. You used a dark technique to break my body. Isn't that despicable? Dark technique? Could it be that you accidentally let me see through your flaws, and I used a dark technique? Divine dragon race. To think that you are a supreme expert whose name shakes the immortal world, the divine dragon race's patriarch. I never thought that you would be a trash with an undeserved reputation. If not for your clansmen, you would have died in my hands. Do you know that? Suyin said. These words were not false at all. If not for the divine dragon race, the head of the divine dragon race would have been bitten off by Suyin. His expression changed drastically as he looked around. He discovered that the immortals around him were no longer as excited or worshipful as before. All that was left was disappointment and doubt. Not only were the immortals suspicious, but even the mystical dragons within the tribe were starting to have doubts. Could the divine dragon race really defeat Suyin? The divine dragon race clenched his teeth and flew into a rage out of humiliation. Ignoring the sword chi that had yet to be completely removed from his body, he suddenly leaped into the air and crashed into Suyin. If I don't kill you today, I swear I won't be a dragon. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Suyin said coldly. He soared into the sky and released the devil chi. The divine power stuck close to the devil chi and spread out in all directions. Only heaven, Qin Qianlong, Xingbai, the Nether Empress. Since these divine dragons have interfered in the decisive battle, there is no need for you to be courteous. A cold light flashed in Suyun's eyes. His killing intent was revealed, and a cold word came out from between his teeth. Kill, kill, kill. Since the divine dragon race wants to start a war, then kill anyone who makes an enemy out of us. Kill anyone who wants us to die. Kill. With a furious roar, a berserk, baleful aura engulfed the world. Faintly, it was about to suppress the terrifying dragon might. Are you sure you want to do this? The head of the divine dragon race stopped his body and said coldly, Between you and me, we will not rest until one of us dies. Do you really think you can contend against my divine dragon race? You don't think so? Good. Then I'll let you know how laughable your thoughts and actions are. The divine dragon race roared and pounced toward Suyin. As for the group of dragons, they no longer stood by the side and watched. One by one, they twisted their huge dragon bodies and rushed forward. At the same time, Kai Tian, Qin Qianlong, Xingbai, the Nether Empress, Wei Ming, and Faceless all led their men and rushed forward. This was a decisive battle. There was no longer any reason, nor was there any mercy to speak of. Any reason would only belong to the victor. Dragon roars resounded through the clouds. The terrifying sounds of battle and the whistling sounds of magic seemed to shatter one's eardrums. Many people didn't even have the time to see what was going on before they were drowned in spells and died miserably. Even if it was a powerful dragon, once it fell into the group of immortals, it would be instantly dismembered without any chance of escape. This was a life and death battle. The cruel situation tested Su Yun's allied forces and the dragons of the divine dragon race. Venerable One, what should we do? Shou Jun whispered to the spiritual venerable beside him. This kind of battle had already exceeded the scope of their involvement. If they were to get involved, they might suffer heavy casualties. However, ruthless glint flashed across the spiritual reverend's eyes. He said in a deep voice, Lord Shou Jun, I'm afraid you're not here to help Tian Yang Zhenren avenge his dead disciple, right? Spiritual Master Tian Yang is just relying on his seniority. His disciple is a human. Is my disciple not a human? Su Yun had at least slaughtered the immortal court and overturned the immortal court. How could he be someone to be trifled with? If I help him take revenge, I wonder how many of my disciples will die. Shou Jun coldly snorted, but he also understood what the spiritual venerable meant and said in a deep voice, could it be that the reason the venerable one came here is also, naturally, it's also for the evil sword? The spiritual venerable did not hide anything and said it directly. I'm afraid that Chao Shifeng and Lang Duantian are also here for this. Not to mention the two of them, isn't spiritual master Tian Yang the same? However, with the divine dragon race here, we will most likely not be able to obtain the evil sword. The spiritual venerable swept his gaze across the divine dragon race, and Su Yunjun who were fighting. He suddenly lowered his voice and said coldly, Lord Shou Jun, as matters stand, if we want to obtain the evil sword, we must join hands. If not, we will not be able to compete with Su Yun or the divine dragon race, although there's only one evil sword, but we should first obtain it, and we will discuss who the treasure belongs to when we are safe in the future. How about it? I have the same intention. If we continue to stay here, not only will we not be able to obtain anything, we might even lose our lives. Why don't we control the disciples of the other three immortal sects and immediately charge towards Su Yun's encampment to seize the evil sword? What do you think? All right. The spiritual venerable immediately nodded. There's no time to lose. Let's do it immediately. Shou Jun immediately turned around and said to the other three immortal sects, the disciples of the sun-worshipping temple, the disciples of the sunset sect, and the disciples of the cloud sword pavilion. All of you, listen up. Your sect leader has died tragically in Su Yun's hands. Su Yun is your enemy. If you want to take revenge for your sect leader, then you should listen to my orders, and let me and the spiritual venerable lead you. If you do not listen to my orders and take revenge for your sect leader, then you will all be deceiving your masters and ancestors and have no gratitude in your hearts. He was a treacherous villain. Kill him. Shou Jun shouted with a stern expression. The disciples were already scared out of their wits by the chaotic scene in front of them and did not know where to go. Now that they were shouted at by Shou Jun, they panicked even more, and all of them remained silent. However, the only thing they could do was to follow Shou Jun, and they could only acquiesce. Seeing that no one objected, Shou Jun was very satisfied. He and the spiritual venerable still had some prestige in the immortal world. Even though they could not be compared to the current experts, they could still be considered a supreme expert. Right now, Qin Xianlong and the others were busy fighting with the dragons of the divine dragon race and had no time to care about these immortals. How could they waste such a good opportunity? Everyone, listen up. Immediately follow me to Su Yun's encampment and destroy it. Shou Jun shouted. He immediately leaped and rushed towards the encampment. Let's go. The spiritual venerable also shouted and led the disciples of the spirit rhinoceros peak to follow Shou Jun. The temporary people in charge of the cloud sword pavilion, the sunset sect, and the sun-worshipping temple looked at each other. They were a little hesitant, but in the end, they still followed. How could they not be angry when the sect leader was killed? They would also grasp this opportunity. Even though they were extremely afraid of Su Yun, with so many people from the five immortal sects, he did not believe that Su Yun could kill them all. Not good. These shameless people are actually heading towards our encampment. Seeing that, Kai Tian was furious and wanted to bring people to stop them. Let them go. Focus on dealing with the divine dragon race. Qin Qianlong roared, and then pounced towards a divine dragon that was charging over. Kai Tian did not understand, but since Qin Qianlong had said so, he must have his reasons. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.